And welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
Utkia Aj Cameron Reigle.
I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to break out the Saurian translator and show off. Or excuse me, you probably got the Saurian Rosetta Stone software and you just know this by heart by now. But yeah, that's why I didn't. That's why I took a back seat and I was like, you know what? I will just introduce this in my native language. But
well, I mean,
yeah.
you're just saying your own name, so it wouldn't have been that different.
Yeah, my name is weird enough. It does sound like it could be some sort of Krazoan tongue. Yeah, so this is an episode, Cameron, about Dinosaur Planet. This is also the beginning of a brand new baby season of the Kongversation. Just a little baby has just been born, and it is the Kongversation Season 9. Now, happy Season 9, Cameron.
Happy Season 9.
Yeah.
Season 9. Season 9.
Oh, okay. So you're just blowing through all of the
Yep. Just gonna
standbys.
kill every joke to death 5 minutes in. That's the way we do it now.
Well, we have a lot to get to, not just for this episode, but I feel like with this entire season ahead of us. Now, lots of news has already broken that we'll be covering this year on the Kongversation, including episodes to come on the docket, but that includes, so on the season 8 finale, Jeff predicted that we would see a new Mario Golf game this year. That prediction has already come true. We're getting a new Mario Golf game for the Switch in June. Donkey Kong is in it, so that just ticks off so many boxes. Mario Golf and Donkey Kong of things that I enjoy. So obviously DK Vine will be covering the new Mario Golf game. What's it called? Sugar Rush? Super Rush? What's it called?
Mario Golf Super Rush.
Super Rush, okay. Sorry. I was like, all of the subtitles become meaningless over a certain amount of time. I think once like Mario Tennis hit the No, I think it was like the 3DS era is when I started like having trouble memorizing the subtitles. But then you get like Mario Tennis, like Ultra Smash or something, and
This one, I guess, at least has like some meaning to it because I'm assuming it's referencing the new mode where you run after the ball.
Yeah, the news also came out the day Rush Limbaugh died, which I guess that's synchronicity. But yeah, it looks really cool. I'm really looking forward to it. As Jeff said, we're long overdue for a new Mario Golf game. So I'm all about this. Additionally, news has come out about Playtonic. Playtonic is branching out. They're now going to be a games publisher themselves, with their new label, Platonic Friends, which is just taking that pun and just piling onto the pun. So if you didn't get that Platonic was a pun before, you sure as hell better get it now. Which is really cool to see that they're going down this route. This is a route I've kind of been hoping they would take for themselves for a while. We don't know if this means, future games like ukulele games will be published by themselves, but it's gonna cast the spotlight on a lot of indie titles that would ordinarily fall through the cracks. And it sounds like, based on my needling on social media, that all of these Platonic Friends releases might be featuring cameos by Platonic characters. Now that's just conjecture on my part. I have not had that confirmed by any like inside sources, but that's just based on my because something like this happens, and my first thought was, well, let's make sure all these games are DKU. So I sent out a tweet.
We're free marketing.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so it sounds like Platonic's already ahead of us there, and we don't know what capacity, but it looks to be good. So we'll need to be keeping an eye out on all these Platonic Friends games. Now, additionally, Yuka and Laylee and Rextro have all secured yet another cameo appearance in the Kickstarter-funded game Jitsu Squad. It's like it's a 2D beat 'em up kind of game, sort of similar to Battletoads, which we discussed last year with the new Battletoads 2020. And Jitsu Squad is Kickstarter funded, but it's already blown through its Kickstarter and its initial goals. So it's being made, and I think this was their second attempt at doing a Kickstarter campaign. The first one didn't go through, but it went through, I think, March of 2019, which was, of course, or March of 2020, excuse me. March of 2020. I'm so used to saying 2020, like shouting at the gods above me, 2020, that I can't remember that it's 2021 now. They had their first Kickstarter campaign in March of 2020, which, that was not a good time to start anything of the sort when all of society basically collapsed in on itself. So they're back now. They've got this big Yooka-Laylee and Rextro cameo in it. And so we'll be keeping an eye out on Jitsu Squad. And additionally, this is kind of on that same topic. Cameron, you've done the cover art for a Switch game that I think is coming out Friday, March 5th. Am I correct there?
Yeah, the game you're referring to is Anton Ball Deluxe. It comes out on Steam Friday, March 5th. The Switch release does not come out that day, though there is a Switch release planned.
Gotcha.
And yeah, I did the cover art for that, as well as I contributed some, in a limited capacity, some in-game art as well.
Cool.
You'll see some of my work in the intro cutscene.
I assume you didn't sneak Helmos the Dreadfully Evil into it. It's not part of the DK Vine universe, but it's kind of like a Kevin Bacon 6 Degrees situation here, because in Anton Ball Deluxe they've got a appearance by Clive from the upcoming Switch game Clive and Wrench, which, of course, has a cameo appearance from Trouser. Now, this is where the concept of the DKU becomes very fraught and very argumentative on the DK Vine forum. Even your dog, Cameron, is like, hold on a second, Hyle. Are you saying that Anton Ball Deluxe is not DKU? Because it's got Clive from Clive and Wrench has an appearance by Trouser. In all honesty, we need to, I think, properly litigate all of this. But even if we were to come down on Anton Ball Deluxe not being DKU, if Clive and Wrench does not make a DKU, I've already started the campaign to get Vendy from Yooka-Laylee and Yooka-Laylee Impossible Lair in Anton Ball Deluxe, just based on the Clive connection and the Cameron Reigle connection, considering you are also a B in Impossible Lair. So
I'm probably not at liberty to comment on that either way, but I cannot stop you.
You can't. I'm a rogue. I'm a loose agent. You have no control over me, and I'm going to make your association with this game a nightmare for you. So, but check out Anton Ball Deluxe. It will be on Steam by the time this episode goes live. So take a gander. Anyway. Also, Cameron, before we get into the topic at hand, I want to say I got a new phone. So I've had the same phone for like going on 6 years now, and it was reaching the point where it would just not hold a charge. Like I would have to charge it 3 times a day, and it like the connectors were so gunked up, and no amount of cleaning would fix it. So I had to like prop it up in a certain position for it to get a charge. And eventually it just became so mind numbing that I was just like, okay, got to get a new phone. So I got the new phone finally, which I hate going into like Verizon, especially in the middle of a pandemic, and, sit down there and go through the whole process. Like it's I guess it's easier than getting an Xbox Series X at the moment, but it's still just I don't like it feels like going to the doctor for a piece of technology. It just combines the worst of both worlds in my mind. But I got one, and as a result, I can now play more prolonged sessions of Mario Kart Tour. And I have actually been playing Mario Kart Tour off and on every single day for the last week and a half. And begrudgingly, I have to admit, I'm having a little bit of fun with it. And for those of you who are regular listeners to the Kongversation, who have listened to the Mario Kart Tour episodes I did with Gibbon, that might be a shocking revelation to hear me say that I am actually a little bit kind of enjoy. I still have problems with it, but I think just getting time to relax and play it whenever I want at my leisure without worrying about, well, my phone isn't going to hold up, I need to preserve the battery life or whatever. Yeah, it's causing me to just subconsciously reevaluate it and reevaluate my past antagonism towards it. So, I will be talking a little bit more about Mario Kart Tour, I guess, once they add Cranky and K. Rool this year, I'm assuming. And
this is how we're going to get Crunch back. I know it.
I mean, look, if they know what's best for them, they've got this character they own. Oh, we're going to be getting into some Diddy Kong Racing rights on this episode. We can't escape it. But, yeah, I guess I kind of am. I see the appeal of Mario Kart Tour. I'll put it that way. I may not, absolutely love it, but I'm starting to get why people do, even if it is a massive shakedown for cash. But hey, I got Donkey Kong today. I finally unlocked Kong after playing for about a week and a half. And, didn't cost me any real world money. So, and not only did I unlock Donkey Kong, I unlocked the Burning DK logo for my my little profile. Kind of like the Sea of Thieves titles, I guess. You get these little profile badges. And I got the Burning DK right before I unlocked Donkey Kong. So I was like, well, sweet. I'm all set. So I got Donkey Kong. I got the barrel train cart. Weird to see Donkey Kong in a barrel train cart because, as a Mario Kart veteran, he's too big for it. But, they built a different model for him. So you can fit in that one and it's fine. So I've got a Donkey Kong cart. I've got a Donkey Kong badge. I've got a Donkey Kong character. I just need to unlock the other three, and then there's a DK Jumbo and the Rambi Rider, but whatever. I'm set. I can actually enjoy the game without playing as a Koopaline or whatever. And, so I'll be talking more about that too. So if you're a fan of Mario Kart Tour, but you hated my takes on it, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this is Jungle Beat all over again. Who knows? All right, Cameron, let's talk about Dinosaur Planet. And now, we've brought up Dinosaur Planet and Star Fox Adventures on the Kongversation before. I think back in season 1, we did an episode on Dinosaur Planet. So it was a long, long time ago. And it's been a long time since we've really dedicated this much time to it. And we actually haven't even done a Star Fox Adventure Spotlight yet. Because, I was kind of saving that for, I guess, the 20th anniversary next year. But this won't be our definitive statement on Dinosaur Planet and all the revelations that have come out about Dinosaur Planet. I don't want this episode to be the last word on it because I feel like the great thing about what's been happening in the past couple of weeks is I feel like this whole corner of the Donkey Kong universe, call it the Dinosaur Planet trilogy, the DKU Star Fox games, however you want to define it. This kind of closed off spin-off of the DKU that hasn't had a new game in something like 15 years. It has actually seen renewed interest, and I can post Star Fox Adventure stuff on social media without feeling apologetic about it. It feels relevant for the first time in a long time on DK Vine. And that's so exciting to me because I absolutely adore Star Fox Adventures and I love talking about Star Fox Adventures. So if I have an excuse to talk about Dinosaur Planet and Star Fox Adventures, yeah, I'm going to use and abuse that. Absolutely. So I'm sorry if you don't like any of this, but this will be coming back up on the Kongversation for as much as I can milk it. I will milk that Thorntail and drink it up. So, anyway, so Cameron, if you, and I don't mean you, I mean the general you, the audience at home. If you fell into a scarab well before the last few weeks, you may not know that the site Forest of Illusion got their hands on a Nintendo 64 build of Dinosaur Planet that dates to December 1st of the year 2000, right before, I guess, they would have shifted development to the GameCube. And how they got this is a bit of a mystery. All they said was that it was taken from the disc of a, quote, private game collector in Sweden, end quote. And that sounds like a Bond villain to me. Like a private game collector in Sweden sounds like I don't even know, but I'm picturing somebody like in like a Dr. No jacket or something, just like hoarding all of these games and arcade cabinets in these like sterile white hallways. But yeah. It somehow they got it, presumably from somebody at Rare once upon a time, or somebody at Manor Park who smuggled it out. And then this is how Forest of Illusion got their hands on it. So this is from the N64 build of Dinosaur Planet, one of them, but from the very end of that kind of development cycle before it would have shifted to the GameCube. And we know this too, not just from the date, but because of a startling revelation in the ROM itself. It doesn't star, not really, it doesn't star the character of Saber. It stars an early version of Fox McCloud in Dinosaur Planet. Had we known that Fox McCloud and the whole integration into Star Fox Adventures was happening while the game was still an N64 game, had we known this before this point, Cameron?
If it had been known, I certainly did not know about it. I was kind of always under the impression that Dinosaur Planet was releasing so late into the N64's life cycle that it was bound to get kicked down the road to the GameCube at some point anyway. And I had kind of assumed that came part and parcel with the heavy retool into Star Fox Adventures, but I definitely did not expect anything like this.
Yeah, I feel like, so I get a little bit murky on Dinosaur Planet and Dinosaur Planet like history. So I feel like this knowledge might have been rattling around some cobwebby recesses in the back of my brain, but it wasn't certainly something I retained because it was like, and we've certainly never seen the visual evidence of it that Fox McCloud was put into the N64 build of Dinosaur Planet until now.
And I guess that's really it. Like, regardless of how the development cycle went, it didn't really matter much which kind of came first in this scenario, because we didn't have this build makes this real. This makes this something you can see.
Yeah,
happening.
Yeah. So like they released it early Saturday morning, at least here in the U.S. It was early Saturday morning. So like I woke up and showered and went to the computer to do my DK Vine business for the day, and didn't expect to have to process all of this information, that there was a Dinosaur Planet ROM leak and that Fox McCloud was in it, not Saber. And I say Fox McCloud, not Saber, but aside from the character model and like a line of dialogue, everything about it is Saber still. But
you can tell it's like very transitional. Like,
yes.
Like I would say that this seems like almost like in a proof of concept stage.
Sure. Obviously, kind of weird to see because the split between Dinosaur Planet and Star Fox Adventures in our heads is like the N64 game and the GameCube game. And so to see kind of the point where they met in the middle in the development changes up a lot of what we know. And it also is sort of helps bring them together a little bit more. Like I can see now the clear evolution from Saber to Fox McCloud. So in some ways, this actually makes Star Fox Adventures feel more like the original Dinosaur Planet in my mind, just seeing how it got to this point. This is like the missing link in the middle. But, Dinosaur Planet was a game that when it was announced back at the turn of the century, I was interested in it. I was hyped for it. And, especially knowing that it was coming from, I guess, the Diddy Kong Racing team, right? And that it would have the character of Tricky in it. It meant that, it was a new Rare property that we knew from the outset was going to be DKU. It wasn't this game that we often play where a Rare game is announced and then we're like, okay, is it going to be part of the DKU? Is there going to be a character appearance in it? Which pretty much defined everything from Grab by the Ghoulies to Viva Pinata to Sea of Thieves and now Everwild. And, even Ukulele and Platonic for a bit. We were like, we got to have them get a goldfish in this game. And I mean, we won there. And generally we can push things into the DKU realm. We have enough weight now. We can push them around like sumo wrestlers to get what we want, but just enough weight to get something minor to appease us. But, this was back in a day where like we didn't know, and we were just these idiot teenagers with a website, and the whole DKU concept was just down to the whims of the teams at Rare. So I was like, oh, this new mythology, this new IP from Rare, and we're going to get to cover it on DK Vine. And let's just clear up right now why Dinosaur Planet and then Star Fox Adventures is part of the DKU, because this is still something that blows people's minds, or it's something that people vehemently disagree about when they hear our take on it. But our position is that the character of Prince Tricky of the Earthwalkers is the same character as the boss of Dino Domain from Diddy Kong Racing, Tricky. All right. And when you look at the history, and we're going to be getting into the history even before Dinosaur Planet of this game's development, I think that becomes even more clear that they started out as the same character. I think that was even confirmed by Lee Loveday back on Scribes way back when, they started out as the same character. But, over time, as the project developed and changed focus and became something else, somehow this little dinosaur sidekick named Tricky hung on desperately for dear life. It made the transition into a Star Fox 64 sequel with a character named Tricky intact. And so while I think the attitudes of much of the Star Fox Adventures team was that, well, no, they're not the same Tricky. It's just the character we never renamed it. DK Vine's position is that's ridiculous. Of course they're the same Tricky. It's a Rare dinosaur character named Tricky. How could they not be the same character?
It's at least very funny in context that there is absolutely no reason for him to be named Tricky, if not for the fact that he started, had roots in them being the Diddy Kong Racing team.
That was our take too. And, there's even a line of dialogue where, when Fox first hears Tricky's name, he even has an aside like, nice name. Like, even he knows there's no reason why this character would be named Tricky unless he was a cheating asshole in a racing game. But I think, ultimately, like, as the years have gone by, more people at Rare and Platonic whether or not they worked on Star Fox Adventures and or Diddy Kong Racing, they've reluctantly come to the notion that, okay, it could be the same dinosaur. We don't really care. And there's probably a whole host of legal issues we don't want to wade into after the split from Nintendo. But fine, DK Vine, you can have your little cookie here. If he'll just shut you up. Same way we got Royston and Viva Pinata, essentially. But, yeah, it actually works really well when you look at Star Fox Adventures and then Star Fox Assault, where Tricky reappears. You look at the arc of the character in Star Fox Adventures. He says, "I want to explore the stars." He basically, like, Fox becomes his role model, and he's like, "I want to, like, you've inspired me. I want to go out and explore stars, the planets. I want to explore the universe because of you, Fox." And then in Star Fox Assault, his family dies. Like the entirety of Dinosaur Planet comes under attack by these invading insects called aporoids. Yada yada yada, and the planet is, I believe, in your words, Cameron, curb stomped. And then, so Tricky leads an exodus from Dinosaur Planet across the stars, eventually settles on Timbers Island, and founds Dino Domain. It works well, especially when Star Fox Assault weirdly bridges the two designs of Tricky, little baby Tricky and gruff boss Tricky from Diddy Kong Racing. And it's not Kev Bayless doing the voice in Star Fox Assault, but the voice sounds like this perfect middle ground of when baby Tricky reaches puberty and he's going through like this adolescence, and you can say, oh yeah, I can hear how that absolutely goes into adult Tricky.
It's very eerie how well it lines up, because it can't possibly have been the intention at all, but
no,
here we have this is a much larger version of Tricky, like canonically 1 year after Adventures. And
yeah, I think
I don't know who's doing the new voice, but it sounds like Kev Bayless's voice, just like going through an awkward squeaky voice teen phase.
Well, and I think that's what happened is that Kev Bayless did the voice for Tricky in Diddy Kong Racing too, right?
I was never 100% sure on Diddy Kong Racing's credits, bar certain characters, and Tricky's one of the ones I'm not 100% sure on.
It sounds like Kev Bayless to me, like his American accent. But let's assume that Kev Bayless did both Trickies. So if you're going to approximate, if you're going to bring in another voice actor to do young Tricky going through puberty, then if you get somebody who tries to impersonate Kev Bayless's take, they're going to probably stumble upon like something close to that adult Tricky voice too, and then we get this perfect continuity meld.
Just so we don't get notes on it, I did look up the name. The credit is Chet Morgan for Tricky's voice in Assault. Not Diddy Kong Racing.
Okay. I was like, I don't even know who that is. I'm a bad Rare fan.
That's the rough thing with Diddy Kong Racing. All the voice credit, like the credits name all of the voice actors, but they don't specify who they played. So you kind of just have to infer it all, and you aren't able to infer very much.
Yeah. So anyway, that's why Dinosaur Planet was going to be DKU, and why Star Fox Adventures is DKU. But Dinosaur Planet's hype, its reveal, and its general like release of info on Rare's website back in the day, it overlapped with games like Donkey Kong 64 and Banjo-Tooie. And in those early DK Vine days, its coverage was mostly handled by the likes of Chad and Ben Cosmina. They were the big like Dinosaur Planet stans on the site. They were the ones who were really like jazzed up about it. Meanwhile, I think my problem was, as much as I was looking forward to Dinosaur Planet and knew I would be all in once it came out, Rare was revealing some really dense mythology about this game. And for me, if I don't actually have a product in front of me, be it a book or a movie or a video game, and you just give me like the printout of this is the mythology of this, I can't wrap my head around it. It's basically like a foreign language I've never learned. It's like the works of Tolkien. Before I had actually, it would be like handing me the Silmarillion before I saw the Peter Jackson movies. I would be like, what is this? So it wasn't tangible for me in the slightest, and I just kind of let them cover Dinosaur Planet while I focused on things I did understand, like Banjo. And when it became Star Fox Adventures: Dinosaur Planet, I wasn't really that upset, because it still had Tricky, it was still DKU, so we didn't really lose anything. And Star Fox Adventures was still, in my mind, a great game. And I think my opinion is that it mostly gets the most amount of crap from three corners of what I call a triangle of hate. And that is like Nintendo loyalists who are distrustful because it's kind of like Zelda, but not really Zelda. Star Fox loyalists who just wanted, more of Star Fox 64, which was a great game. And then, the next Star Fox game is this adventure game on foot with dinosaurs. And Rare loyalists who hate that it's not Dinosaur Planet. And that's just a broad kind of assessment. Obviously, a lot of us, don't fall into that triangle. But from what I see from the reactions, outside of DK Vine, outside of our audience here on the Kongversation, that's kind of the impression I get. And hell, I've told this story before, but when I went to reserve it at GameStop, the manager there tried to talk me out of it. GameStop, where they live and die by the amount of reservations they get, the manager of that GameStop said, "You want to reserve Star Fox Adventures? I think you need to change your mind."
Can you imagine? Like, you want to make a pre-order? No, thank you.
Yeah, he was like, he was so radicalized by hatred for this game that he was like, "I'm going to tank Star Fox Adventures at my own store." So I went to Circuit City. Remember Circuit City? All you boomers out there. So I went to Circuit City and I reserved it there. Circuit City was basically Best Buy, before Best Buy.
But red instead of blue.
Yeah, it's red. I think it was like shaped like a big like wall plug or something.
Yeah,
something
their ad campaign, I remember, used to be like a giant red plug falling from the sky and landing like by a storefront sidewalk.
I have to admit, I miss places like Circuit City and Radio Shack, like places that were like, yeah, we sell technology and like that's our gimmick. Like I miss stores in the mall that just sold wires. Anyway, that's just me waxy nostalgic on the Kongversation, as I want to do. But yeah, I went to Circuit City and I reserved it there, which worked out better for me because I got the Star Fox Adventures reservation kit you got for reserving a game at Circuit City. I got Jones Green Apple Soda called Fox Fuel. And I got toilet paper. I got Star Fox Adventures toilet paper, which I found when I visited my parents' house a couple Christmases ago. So, look, all I want to say is I bet that GameStop manager wasn't laughing last year when toilet paper became scarce, and he didn't have anything to wipe his ass with. He should have trusted in Star Fox Adventures. Anyway, that's my little story. But yeah, if you focus on what Star Fox Adventures is versus what it isn't, I think you'll find it's a fantastic game.
Yeah, so I had an odd relationship with Dinosaur Planet, kind of owing to where I was in the late 90s, early 2000s. So the thing is, I wasn't very online at that point in my life. Like, I think I didn't have the internet until maybe 2000-ish, and even then it was dial-up. I haven't really discovered DK Vine or any of the other sort of places that would become like rare fan havens at the time. And because I wasn't on the pulse of anything thing to that degree. The way I first learned about Dinosaur Planet was after it was already undergoing its retool into Star Fox Adventures, and it was from an issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly. I think it was specifically issue 145, which was kind of a whole issue preview of the GameCube, which like a heavy dive into Melee. It had previews as in like screenshots of Donkey Kong Racing. I think Grunty's Revenge and Saber Wolf were in there, but it had this little blurb about Star Fox Adventures, that the game formerly known as Dinosaur Planet had resurfaced as Star Fox Adventures Dinosaur Planet. And because of that, like, I don't even think I had fully grokked onto the fact that this was a rare game at the time. My interest in it was solely because I loved the heck out of Star Fox 64, and I loved the idea that it was going to be a Star Fox on foot game.
Yeah, I think that's funny that that's what drew you in, because I remember when Star Fox 64 was out, how many people in my circles, like friends, and from what I heard from their friends, and how many of us who played Star Fox 64 was like, wouldn't it be cool to have a Star Fox game on foot? That was really what we all wanted until we actually got it, and then nobody ever seemed to want it.
It's like I was in the exact position to be targeted by the entire point of the Rare Nintendo deal to convert the game. This is who they wanted to get eyes on the game. And I would eventually learn the history of Dinosaur Planet later, and everything that kind of unfortunately had to get shoved to the wayside to make it better fit the Star Fox universe / get the game out on time. But I feel like I find myself in the small crowd that enjoyed it on the merits of being a Star Fox game, in spite of, or even because of, how very different it was from any previous understanding of Star Fox. I kind of liked what this sort of very different world, the influence this very different world had, kind of shoving a square peg into a round hole onto the Star Fox universe, the sort of ripple effect it had on Star Fox going forward. And that's not to say... I find it very hard to understand exactly how many people are fans of Star Fox Adventures, because it's in sort of a... I mean Star Fox Adventures, no disrespect saying this, but it's in kind of a Donkey Kong 64 situation where I feel like modern understanding of how people see it is more based on the modern reevaluation of it than its success at the time, because it was a very well-selling game. It was a Player's Choice million seller, so it did pretty well for itself.
Yeah, I think it was just an awkward spot when it came out, because I think those people who weren't online and weren't up on video game news, who didn't know about the buyout, just saw it as a very pretty, very polished game starring recognizable characters who they may have been introduced to in the N64 or before that the Super Nintendo. And it was made by Rare, and they recognized that Rareware logo from all these games they really loved on the N64. But then those who were deeper into fandom, they were already upset that Rare was abandoning Nintendo and going to the rivals, this upstart Microsoft console, and they kind of took it out on Star Fox Adventures. So it was divisive when it came out, and I feel like it was kind of like this thing where the normies, the casual crowd, really pushed it over the line and made it a million seller. But if you actually went online to discuss it, it was a divisive game. in part because Rare was leaving. Rare was going to Xbox, and it didn't really matter the circumstances behind that. It was, I'm a Nintendo loyalist. I've already, picked my console for this generation. It's the GameCube. Rare's deserting us, and I need to rationalize in my head why that doesn't matter to me. And
I need to convince myself this wasn't a loss, so I don't have to buy an Xbox.
So Star Fox Adventures has to become a bad game. And, there are elements of Star Fox Adventures that are rushed as a result of the impending buyout, but I think it holds together very well. It's not a Donkey Kong 64 situation where it's a jangly mess when you really look not even hard at it. It's well put together. I mean,
even in Donkey Kong 64's case, it's glitchy, but I think in a lot of ways it's just little unrefinements or things you have to go out of your way to break. I think generally Rare is pretty good about, even if they put out a game that you can take conspicuous issues within regards to its design or story or other aspects of it, they generally don't put out a broken game.
Right, yeah. I mean, Donkey Kong 64, I think, is just infamous. And is seen as a broken game a lot more because of the whole, it requires the expansion pack to work because there's a game-breaking bug in it that we can't find, and oh no, it's just DK64 is kind of a mess in a lot of places. Star Fox Adventures, I would argue, is polished and honestly, the sheen of Star Fox Adventures, I don't think there's a better looking GameCube game, and you can make the case for a lot of GameCube games that are very pretty, very well done, and maybe look better in your eyes than Star Fox Adventures. But I think Star Fox Adventures, between the visuals and the soundtrack, it's really upsetting to me in some ways that Rare never got another GameCube game, because this was what they were able to do with their first. And, you look at early Rare N64 games versus where they wound up with Bad Fur Day, and you're like, oh, what would their GameCube games at the end of its life had looked like had they been able to keep this up? But, well.
Yeah, I think it's one of the prettiest games on the GameCube for the entirety of its life, despite how early it hit in the GameCube's life cycle. Mm. And I honestly think some of the reason I love the way Star Fox Adventures looks is because some of its art direction is still informed by choices they would have made on the N64, in that it's a game that has a very realistic bent to it, but also a very colorful bent to it, kind of reminding me of the heavy reliance on vertex shading in Banjo-Kazooie, where you have multicolored walls in varying hues butted up against each other. There's a lot of very bright, vibrant color spaces and areas informed by color identity in Star Fox Adventures, and it avoids the problem that would plague later games of shooting for realism and then kind of ending up with a brown or gray soup.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And considering, I kept going back to Star Fox Adventures throughout that era of when games started becoming brown soup, and it really was just remarkable how gorgeous it looked as a contrast to where the industry was going. But yeah, Star Fox Adventures is in my top 10 games of all time, still to this day. I think I've got it solidly at number 10, but I adore it. I adore it still. And I will sit here and I will defend it all day to the haters. I don't care. And to those Rare partisans, I am among the most infamous Rare partisans in the fandom, but to those who say Nintendo ruined it, Nintendo made it Star Fox Adventures, there was There was a little Photoshop on DK Vine back in the day of Miyamoto dressed as the Grim Reaper in reference to him killing Dinosaur Planet. So even we overreacted at the time. But to the people who are like, I would have preferred Dinosaur Planet, and I'll touch upon this more near the end of the show. I would say that, I had conversations with members of the team, such as Nick Burton at E3 2015, and that really helped put any lament for the loss of Dinosaur Planet sans Star Fox behind me. Because, as they explained it, there was real no animosity towards the change among the team. They were kind of happy about it because it would draw more eyeballs to their product. And aside from a few, obvious changes, which I think we'll get into here, much of Dinosaur Planet's core fundamentals were carried over to Star Fox Adventures. They added R-Wing missions and this, that, and the other, but even if you look at the ROM that's leaked, while the differences are stark, it was familiar at the same time. I was like, oh yeah, this is this bit from Star Fox Adventures. Now I'm in this bit from Star Fox Adventures.
I'd like it to being in the same house with completely different furniture. That's kind of how I felt about it. And my overall evaluation, I think where I land on were we better off for getting Dinosaur Planet or Star Fox Adventures is I lament some of the things we lost when the game lost its identity as Dinosaur Planet, but I don't regret what we have because I love Star Fox Adventures for what it is.
Yeah, and combine it with all the leaked footage that came out several years ago, and it seemed to really back up everything the team was saying and that we're saying here. Plus, there's the fact that we did get follow-ups to some of the characters and the plot in Star Fox Assault and Command. And so, that means, to me, I think we might have gotten the better deal, because had it remained Dinosaur Planet, I very much doubt there would have been a sequel. We might have gotten an Xbox remake a la Conquer Live and Reloaded, I don't know, but I think the most we could have hoped for would be Saber and Crystal would have appeared in things like IDARB. The game would have been bundled in Rare Replay, which would have been a plus. We get a ship set in Sea of Thieves. But, even though those are all really cool things, I think I'll take a loose trilogy of Star Fox games that were informed by the Dinosaur Planet mythology over anything that we the scraps we would have gotten had it remained Dinosaur Planet. And I think that I said Star Fox Adventures is my top 10 games. I think the team behind it, is it Lee Shunman? Is that his name?
Lee Shunman is how I pronounce it, but I don't know that that's correct.
I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Lee, but it's Shunman. But anyway, I think his team at Rare in the 90s was right up there with the Males team in my esteem, as far as making games that I think fit my preferences and philosophies and just general taste. Made Diddy Kong Racing, made Star Fox Adventure. That appeals to me. Everything about those games appeals to me. So anyway, speaking of Diddy Kong Racing, As this ROM leaked, we got some revelations from Kev Bayless, who wrote an editorial over at Andy Robinson's. Hold on, I got a drink. Hold on.
Here, I get open.
Andy Robinson. All right. Over at Andy Robinson's site, VGC, Kev Bayless wrote about his experiences making the jump from Dinosaur Planet to Star Fox Adventures. And in this editorial, he brought up that this is something we already knew, but it's not well known to, I think, anybody outside of the hardcore Rare fandom, is that Dinosaur Planet started out as a project starring Timber from Diddy Kong Racing, and it would be a time-traveling adventure back to prehistoric times. And we knew this, but to hear it confirmed in such stark detail that was pretty cool.
It's very strange to see it in black and white like this, because from what I had always heard, it always seemed like a sort of in hushed whispers thing that, you know, like the baseline concepts of Timber might have had a solo adventure at one point planned on the N64, and it might have been Dinosaur Planet. But no, this is just hardline confirmation that's exactly what it was, and he was going to be a time traveler with a rucksack and fingerless gloves and have a little dinosaur sidekick, like painting a very vivid picture of this.
Yeah, and so we don't know if this was going to be a like Diddy Kong Racing prequel. I hypothesized that maybe this would explain how dinosaurs got to Timber's island, is Timber brought them back from the past. Maybe it's just me reading too much into it and they didn't really have a plan as related to lore. But the fact that Tricky was in the game when it was a more direct descendant of Diddy Kong Racing, I think it would have come up for sure. But
the funniest thing about this story is, and Kev kind of mentions it in the context of this article, that Timber was at one point going to be the marquee character of Diddy Kong Racing before it was called Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah.
But then Diddy Kong took over the project.
Yeah,
and became the star.
The funny like capper to all of that is that the change to Star Fox Adventures was negotiated behind the scenes with Nintendo at E3 2000. Just like Pro-Am 64 became Diddy Kong Racing behind the scenes at E3 1997. So 3 years later, Timber got, well, I mean, granted, Timber was already removed from the project, but essentially this project that starred Timber at one point got control ceded to a Nintendo-owned IP behind the scenes at E3. And it's the same team too. That's what's so funny to me. Like, this is the Diddy Kong Racing team.
I have to wonder to myself, like, eventually, the end point of this story is eventually, they decide Timber's not working out. They rethink the design. Dinosaur Planet's main character becomes Saber the Wolf. And I have to think to myself, were they more comfortable ditching Timber from the project because he was already kicked off of Diddy Kong Racing and therefore did not have any star power to cash in on or carry forward?
I don't know. I mean, because the thing is, Banjo, Kazooie, and Conker, they were obviously already in development. They were in development concurrently with Pro-Am 64, even though they made their debut when it became Diddy Kong Racing, and that came out before their own games. But, they were kind of all on the same level in Diddy Kong Racing because we did not know who Banjo was. The general population did not know who Banjo was. The general population did not know who Conker was. And they both got their own games. And so I think you could really spin off any of those characters in the years after Diddy Kong Racing. It's like, oh, here's Timber. You might remember him from Diddy Kong Racing, just like somebody might remember that Bear Banjo from Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah, it's just funny that, like, by way of transitive property, Timber had his lunch eaten by Nintendo characters twice.
Yeah, I think, as we've discussed in the DK Vine Inner Circle, since this news broke, Diddy Kong Racing is just a cursed property. It's just any attempt to get a sequel made falls apart or becomes something else. And the characters have various tragedies befall them, either in development or in universe. Really, the only character who's really escaped the wrath of Diddy Kong Racing is Diddy Kong himself. So, but yeah, I mean, Timber, I like the character of Timber, even if he is just Tiger Diddy Kong. I like Diddy Kong, so of course I'm going to find Timber appealing. And I always thought, in the back of my mind, when Rare went to Xbox, it would have been cool to see them do a Donkey Kong Country style game just with Timber and his family and his world, and kind of have them be, the stand-ins for the Kongs. but unfortunately, that era, that initial era on the Xbox, 2D platformers were not in vogue at the moment, and there was just never a good window to do something like that. But anyway, I find it interesting too that, Nintendo was like, hey, we've been thinking about doing an on-foot Star Fox game, and your characters in this game look very much like Star Fox characters. It would be great if we could marry these concepts together. But I don't know if you paid attention to the opening, I guess, opening screen on the ROM where it gave like the copyright information. But Dinosaur Planet was a Rare game. And by that I mean it was published. It was going to be published by Rare. They were going to have all ownership over these characters. And so when they negotiated this with Nintendo and had it become a Star Fox game, this wasn't like Diddy Kong Racing where they just had the Star Fox characters licensed to them, like Diddy Kong and Crunch and Banjo at the time. Banjo was the Nintendo character. Here, like, Nintendo got everything. They got the ownership over the project. It became a Nintendo IP. And I find that interesting because I've never really thought what Dinosaur Planet was going to be, if it was going to be Nintendo published or Rare published. It makes sense it was going to be Rare published, but that makes it all the more shocking that it became fully owned by Nintendo. Especially, like, 2 years before the buyout, too. Like, Rare lost all of these concepts and properties right out from under them. But with that in mind, it's not surprising that Nintendo would willingly part with their stakes in like the Banjo-Kazooie IP, given how complicated the entire near decade of right sharing between the two companies had been. They probably just wanted to make sure they had everything Donkey Kong and Star Fox locked down. And they were more than happy to part with stuff like Banjo-Kazooie if that meant they could just get these properties that they had created under their control. But yeah, Kev also shared some early concept art from Star Fox Adventures 2, so I'm sure you want to speak on that.
Yeah, I really wanted to talk about these drawings because they're a very fun look at what might have been the first sort of attempts to reconcile these two universes together. And right off the bat, it looks like they were already discussing in the meeting, or at least Kev was kind of thinking Crystal's going to need to kind of be redesigned to fit in with the Star Fox cast.
Yeah.
And I really like these concept drawings. They're very fun. I say this with absolutely no disrespect to Kev Bayless, but in these crystal designs, I definitely sense a type of character design elements he gravitates towards. In that, hey, you have to make a character look tough and cool, put spikes on him.
I mean, it was essentially still the 90s, Cameron, so, spikes, and be glad she doesn't have any big, pouches, leg pouches on her costume.
I mean, I say that again. I say this all with respect. I love this in between design. I like the mohawk and the fang necklace, and the dinosaur in strapped boots, or leggings.
Yeah. I mean, this stuff is really cool to see, and what struck me about seeing the original model of Crystal in this ROM was how much less sexualized she seemed to be, versus, and I think Kev's art, much like Kev's proposed design for the new Donkey Kong appearance, they're just a lot more extreme than what would eventually we would have a melding of the two, right? that famous comparison shot of Mr. Miyamoto's original sketch for how Donkey Kong should look in Donkey Kong Country, and then Kev Bayless's proposed sketch, and like, well, let's find a nice middle ground. And I guess they sort of did that with Crystal here too, where we got the original. Well, of course, the original one is from Rare, but the original Crystal versus Kev Bayless's maybe extreme spiked warrior version of Crystal, and a middle ground. We'll go with the middle ground.
Yeah, it's weird because I feel like I don't see much of a through line in this Crystal versus the one we got, other than that they clearly went older. There's a very similar Crystal drawing to the final Crystal that we got from Nick Southam, who did a lot of the blue pencil concept art that people heavily associate with Dinosaur Planet. Like, it's even in this build, I think, on the menu screens.
Yeah, which I love. I love the menu screens, by the way. If I forget to mention them, I guess that is one thing I miss, because I prefer the menu screens here versus the one with just Fox hanging out in the Great Fox. But
yeah, I do love the interior of the Great Fox a lot, but I do also enjoy that we get to hear the Dinosaur Planet main theme in the build that leaked, because it is a wonderful piece of music that you don't hear in the final realization of the game. And I think in one of the details that's since come out about from people who've sort of torn the ROM apart is a partially intact intro that was going to be paired with, and that's sort of the fulfillment of something I never thought I would see, because I remember downloading the MP3 of the original Dinosaur Planet theme. Even after the game was retooled, Rare would still host old music on their website, and I did download some of it, and I kept trying to imagine, like, this is a really cool piece of music. It's very trailer-y. I have to imagine these were cues set up to a greater scene, and I wonder how it would have played out. And now I finally have an idea of what that would have been.
But yeah, it was cool to hear Kev's take on how it went down. Because again, the important thing to gather is there was no animosity. That, oh, you're taking our project and you're turning it into something Nintendo branded. It was just basically like, okay, how do we do this? How do we do it justice? How do we do Star Fox justice? And how do we retain the integrity of our own project and this world we've built up? And we can really see from the ROM, like, how they kind of walk that line. And, because
even looking at the notes Kev shared, it's amazing how much they had figured out, like, right away. We want to put an R-Wing in the game. We want to target 60 FPS. We want, like, to make the character designs more realistic for the mammoths and such. Fox is going to have the staff.
Yeah, and in the ROM, Fox does not have the staff. He has his own weapon that functionally serves the same purpose as the staff and can do the same things as the staff. But yeah, so the ROM, let's get into this, because it is, that's not really a hybrid, because it shows a glimpse of the early Dinosaur Planet mythos, and all they've really done is they've put in a new design for Saber, and in one line of dialogue he's called Fox McCloud. But it's still basically Dinosaur Planet, right? It's not, they haven't really integrated anything from the broader Star Fox Lylat system mythos into this game yet, aside from that one character. So it's a bit hard to get a read on what was always intended to be there versus what, was being added and what they had already earmarked to be removed at this point.
The impression I get, which I kind of alluded earlier, is I think it's sort of my read on it is it's sort of a transitionary proof of concept, in that it's sort of saying, let's one-to-one replace Saber with Fox, replace any dialogue that absolutely does not make any sense whatsoever because he's Fox and not Saber, and just see how much makes sense. and
Yeah.
whatever doesn't will have to change further. But this will at least give us an idea of how this is going to work moving forward.
Yeah, it feels like they were starting to test the waters, and I think like they had the core of Dinosaur Planet built. So it was like, how do we make this work for Star Fox? Well, first let's add Fox, and then we'll go from there. And obviously, by the time we got to Star Fox Adventures, a lot had changed, and also very little had changed. It's weird to me how you're like when you look at the final product, what was de-emphasized or removed entirely, and what was given greater prominence. So let's get into it. So we're not going to be talking about like everything in the ROM. So for most people, the ROM sort of starts breaking down by the time you get past Snowhorn Waste. When you get back to Swapstone Hollow, what's Thorntail Hollow in Star Fox Adventures. And people have been able to progress further using various tricks. We're not going to get that far into it. We're just going to talk about the first set piece with Crystal and the first set piece with Fox, and a little bit after that. And then we'll share some more thoughts there. But yeah, I've only played that far. I haven't really tried to push the ROM any more than I already have, and I don't know if I have any desire to really, because my curiosity has been satiated, at least for now.
At the very least, what we'll cover is by far the most functional part of what is there, and therefore I think paints the most complete picture of where they were planning to go with it.
Right, like I said, this is not the definitive episode about Dinosaur Planet or Star Fox Adventures. We're going to be talking a lot more about it if I have any say in the matter. So this is just kind of to reintroduce it to the language of the conversation and know, hey, this is going to be a well we are going to jump down into every now and again. Second time I mentioned the wells, but and whatever. All right, so the game starts off just the same, with Crystal riding in on a Cloud Runner ally and getting ambushed by General Scale's flying galleon. And, you know, this was very familiar to anybody who's played Star Fox Adventures. And, you know, we've seen footage of this before, so it wasn't that surprising. Like this, I think once we actually got past this is when it started to feel like, whoa, I'm actually playing Dinosaur Planet. This isn't just like a low-res, foggy version of Star Fox Adventures. The big thing here, though, lore-wise, is the character of Kite. So Star Fox Adventures has the caged Cloud Runner on General Scale's ship that it's never really like a functioning character. She's there in a cage, and you never get any context or backstory or anything about her.
You never get a name, even.
You never get a name.
We assume that it's supposed to be Kite, but it could be any Cloud Runner with the way it's presented to us.
Right. Here, though, because originally in Dinosaur Planet, you know, Saber and Crystal were of equal status. It's not like Star Fox Adventures where Crystal is entombed in this stasis state by Andros and is used as this channeler for Krazoan energies. Star Fox Adventures is weird, but they are equal characters, and they each have their own Dino sidekick.
Yeah, it is something. It's one of the things I do lament about the conversion over to Star Fox Adventures, and that's Crystal is so much more of a character in this build in just the brief glimpse we get of her. Yeah,
and it's funny to me how often this happened during this era of Rare, because not only did it happen here with Dinosaur Planet, but it happened with Conker too. Originally, Conker and Barry were equal characters in 12 Tales, and then when it became Bad Fur Day, Barry was shunted off and became just this side character. But originally, she was fully playable. She would have her own adventures and own chapters.
I guess Crystal still made out better in that she lived. Spoilers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Crystal, her integrity as a character. Well, for one thing, like Barry became just as heinous as Conker, and at least Crystal is still heroic. Crystal is still this virtuous figure who then, appears in the two follow-ups, Assault and Command, and is also in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as a spirit and an assist trophy. So, it could have been worse.
I feel like she's still like very much the same character in Star Fox Adventures. We just don't get to see her do nearly as much.
Yeah, like I said, like design-wise here, she's younger and she's like I don't know, but I do feel like she's generally the same character. She doesn't have the same motivation here, obviously, because in Star Fox Adventures, there's this whole backstory where she's from the planet Cernia, and it was destroyed under mysterious circumstances. It's later to be inferred that it was Andros' spirit doing a dry run of what he did on Dinosaur Planet. By the way, anytime I say Soria instead of Dinosaur Planet, they're the same place. Star Fox Assault established that Dinosaur Planet's actual name is Soria, but so it's easy for us to kind of mix and match, but Soria doesn't come from Rare, that comes from Namco.
It's a change I ultimately like, because in every iteration of this game, it's weird when they call the world Dinosaur Planet, even though that was the name of the game. Yeah,
I do think that's weird too.
It's like calling Earth Human Planet.
Which, honestly, it's almost like campy a little bit to just every time they say dinosaur, especially with the Saurian language, which is another thing, is there's no Saurian language here. It's all spoken in English.
Yeah, and it definitely helps you take the conversations in Dinosaur Planet more seriously than in Star Fox Adventures, where you don't have an entire like partial sentence constructed out of cipher language and then finish it off with general scales in plain English, because what does the word general mean to a dinosaur that doesn't have the word general in its lexicon?
We were talking about this on our Sea of Thieves stream the other day, but I like the nonsense that is the Saurian language, because again, it's campy. Like, I don't mind the Star Fox Adventures.
It's fun, like Silver Age comic book camp.
Yeah,
but it is like easy to poke holes in.
Sure. But I have to admit, I do miss the attempt. Like, one of my biggest pet peeves in sci-fi, or sci-fi fantasy, is that when all aliens speak English, or I guess whatever language it's dubbed in, and there's no like attempt at rationalizing it. Like, just give me a little. I don't care how stupid the explanation is. Like, I have a universal translator or whatever. Just give me something so I can just be like, okay.
To the credit of the Saurian language, one, the cipher is very, very fun, and I like that they give you the notes on how it works. And two, it leads to some of my favorite moments in the game, because in Star Fox Adventures, because unlike in this Dinosaur Planet build, Fox does have that communication breakdown, and where he has to get Slippy to translate for him, and he's just so frustrated that he can't understand what he's hearing. Like, it's kind of a high point of Star Fox Adventures in general, is Fox's complete exhaustion with everything he has to deal with, rolling his eyes or like screaming out in frustration.
Yeah, it really, like, Star Fox Adventures, I think, changed the way I view the character Fox, because I view him as somebody who is very quick to just be like teem with frustration over the very he is basically like your sci-fi flyboy kind of archetype, right? He's a hot shot in the cockpit, but then when you get him out of that element, and he just falls apart.
It's I love what Star Fox Adventures did to the character of Fox McCloud so much, because they've kind of constructed this history around him where, you know, he's the galaxy's savior as of Star Fox 64, and he basically goes 7 entire years with no pay as they slum it in the Great Fox, which is slowly falling apart, eating nothing but pizza and junk. Like, it's just sort of turned like what should be this like idealistic gung-ho save the day hero into a miserable cynic. And Star Fox Adventures is the process of building him back up into the character he used to be. Right.
Yeah. It's very much like, okay, you're a mercenary soldier of fortune for hire, and you do your job, and the solar system is at peace.
You did it so well that you put yourself out of business.
Yeah. And it's a common trope with Rare characters, right? Is we're gonna have a jump in time and see them kind of down and out compared to how they were. They did the same thing with Banjo and Kazooie and Nuts and Bolts to an extent. And
both of them involving pizza. Like, pizza is just the universal language of rock bottom for Rare heroes.
Which is not like Rare's anti-pizza. Like, I don't think it's anti-pizza, but yeah, it is funny how just like we're just common trash now. But yeah, anyway, we're kind of getting away from the ROM.
Much like Star Fox Adventures, we're getting away from Crystal too much.
But yeah, Kite was going to be Crystal's sidekick. Princess Kite, you know, Prince Tricky of the Earthwalkers, Princess Kite of the Cloud Runners, and I guess both tribes were still going to have their rivalry, like the two ruling tribes of Dinosaur Planet, but they don't get along. Tricky in Star Fox Adventures is an out-and-out racist towards the Cloud Runners. He refuses to even step foot in their fortress.
That aspect makes way more sense in this version, where you would have had the bifurcation of protagonists, each with their own variety of sidekick.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, but you kind of see now where the plot elements of Star Fox Adventures were first formed from the development of Dinosaur Planet. So you land on Scales' galleon. Scales appears. Basically, it's nearly the same scene, except, you know, in Star Fox Adventures, Scales throws Crystal off the galleon, and then she's rescued by that same Cloud Runner who flew her in, and then they fly to Krazoa Palace. Here, it's Scales that teleports away, and then Crystal takes over the galleon and lands it.
A weird thing I noticed is, I think that, like, maybe up until the 11th hour, Rare was going back and forth on what to do with this scene, because I've seen it play out 3 different ways. Okay. In Star Fox Adventures proper, it's Scales tosses Crystal over the side of the galleon and she rides off on the Cloud Runner. In this build, Scales is like sort of giving his speech and is electrocuted by a bolt of lightning. Which I wanted to touch on. I think, like, as much as people kind of sour on General Scales by the end of Star Fox Adventures because he seems like an anticlimax in that, spoilers, you don't actually have a confrontation with him, and he's not there's a villain, using him as a pawn. This game, I think, seeds a little bit more doubt in Scales being the threat that he comes off as, because you have this scene where he's like menacing Kite in the cage, and a bolt of lightning comes down to fry him like a Looney Tunes character.
Yeah.
But in this version of the scene in the build, he fiddles with the cage, gets electrocuted, and then sort of pushes a button on his belt to teleport out, which he also does in Star Fox Adventures in another scene, so this is something they carried over. But the third way I've seen this scene play out is a while back when like blurry VHS footage of Dinosaur Planet surfaced on the internet, which was like the first hour of gameplay of, I think, an even earlier build than this. In that version, Scales gets electrocuted fooling with the Kite's cage, and then falls off the side of the galleon.
Which makes more sense to me, because where is he teleporting to? Why is he just leaving his ship to, like, it could crash?
It also contextualizes why, when Crystal was talking to Randorn later on, she says, well, you don't have to worry about Scales anymore. Well, you'd say that if he apparently fell to his death. You wouldn't say that if he literally just teleported away.
I was wondering about that line. Yeah, I was like, "What do you mean? Like, the whole plot is still revolving around his little insurrection." But it's funny to me how different this scene played out, because here Crystal takes over the ship and she like lands it at not Krazoa Palace. Functionally, it's Krazoa Palace, but it's Warlock Mountain here. And then she's like,
we never find out how anybody drives this thing. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, there wasn't a scene of her like at the helm or anything. She was just like, "How do we fly this?" And then we just cut to a scene of it flying. And then, but they go to Warlock Mountain, and then you just kind of disembark from the galleon onto what's pretty much the same as Krazoa Palace. But then Crystal's like, "I can't open the cage. I don't know how to open the cage, Kite. Let me get the wizard." She keeps mentioning the wizard, who of course is Randorn. Now Randorn was one of those figures that I remember from this early mythology of Dinosaur Planet, because I would always remember the other staffers on DK Vine would be talking about Randorn, and I think that was even Ben's avatar on the forum, was Randorn the Wizard.
Yeah, it was, and I think Randorn was sort of like, I think to people who knew about the original Dinosaur Planet, he sort of became like the symbol of everything that was lost in the transition from Dinosaur Planet to Star Fox Adventures, because he was clearly the most major character that was known about that didn't show up in Star Fox Adventures.
And it makes sense why he was removed, because spoilers from a 20-year-old game that never got released in this form, Randorn was Saber's dad, right?
Yeah, he's Saber's biological dad and Crystal's adoptive dad.
Which really makes you wonder about any potential romance between the two characters.
In the design documents hosted on Rare Thief, it looks like they were implying potential romance between the two.
Step bro, what are you doing?
It's a bit better than the Luke and Leia situation because they're not related.
Right, there's no like biological incest going on. Randor to me, like, he serves as this, I guess, Gandalfian type figure in the lore. And when they made the change to Star Fox Adventures, I think they upped the importance of the Krazoans. And there just wasn't a need for this Randorn. Randorn just complicated things.
Ultimately. I think when you remove the dynamic of him being Saber's father, because Saber isn't there and he's only there as a wizard and Crystal's adoptive father, and Crystal was getting sidelined in the plot as is. There's just he becomes superfluous a little bit, and I can kind of see why they dropped him, even though he's a cool design and a cool character, and it's always a shame to lose that, but I get why.
When you're introducing an entire solar system of anthropomorphic animals, and it just makes sense to say, yeah, Crystal's from the planet Cernia, and none of these characters are actually from Dinosaur Planet that are coming down to a dinosaur planet. And so, yeah, then Randorn is just like, well, who the fuck is this? Get rid of him.
I'm sure there's a reality where we're in Star Fox Assault, and Randorn is just bumming on the Great Fox.
They just have this wizard tag along now. Hanging out with the robot. Yeah. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure, because, you know, I'm pretty illiterate when it comes to video game knowledge outside of the Donkey Kong universe. Playing through Warlock Mountain, I was hearing Zelda effects, right?
So I'm not that well versed in Zelda, but I would not doubt that there were sound effects in common, because there are a lot of stock library sounds in Star Fox Adventures, and there are also a lot of stock library sounds in Dinosaur Planet. Because I think, like, before the modern era, where Rare has their own Foley studio to make, like, all the various ship noises and such in Sea of Thieves, they were heavily reliant on stock libraries, and you'd even hear overlap in their own games, like the sound that Crystal Staff's projectile function is the same as the Suzy 9mm in Bad Fur Day, or even in this build later, there's like a tree weed that makes the same sound as the bats from Bad Fur Day. Like, there's just a lot of overlap if you have an ear for it. Like, everything is sort of its own little mini Wilhelm scream.
Well, and you know, this was before they really established their own, like, Foley studio in Manor Park, which, yeah, they do all of their sound effects in-house now, but yeah, back then they would have utilized sound libraries, as a lot of developers on the N64 did. And I could see, especially in development, in a build of the game that people like us aren't supposed to see, having actual effects from the Zelda games in there as kind of a placeholder to be like, this is what we want to convey here, and we'll replace this later. This is just to let us know, like, what we kind of want there. That makes complete sense to me. But yeah, it was just striking to hear, like, blatant Zelda sounds in what became Star Fox Adventures, considering how often they're compared. Now, Randorn, actually getting to meet Randorn as a character for the first time. For one, he sounded a little like Sean Connery, with that little, like, a bit of a Scottish brogue, but
he's
not
definitely
like
Sean Connery-ish, but like not as like out and out, like, extreme Scottish that Daniel Carrington is in Perfect Dark, but like of the same flavor.
Yeah, and not as extremely Scottish as the Warpstone would become in Star Fox Adventures. It, like, where it sounds like Shrek, basically. This is just like it reminded me of a toned down Sean Connery impression.
It definitely
like, what
did.
Sean Connery actually sounds like,
and
or sounded like.
I guess as a side note of what characters sound like in this game, we didn't touch on the Sharp Claw enemies in this game speak English, as opposed to just, well, I mean, they speak English very selectively in Star Fox Adventures too, but I kept thinking in my head every time one of them would speak that this sounds like Beavis from Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, I mean, it reminded me a little bit of the Kremlings from Donkey Kong 64. I just like what you would like hear them from the opening, you know, left, right, left.
Hey, you.
Yeah. It just very much Rare certainly liked their reptilian baddies who speak in long, stretched out dialogue. But
I can't blame them. It sounds fun to record.
Yeah. So Randorn, he's like dying, but he's not really dying because he says so long as he stays in Warlock Mountain, it will preserve him. And like at Rare Thief, they've got all of these internal like story documents for how like the story of Dinosaur Planet would have progressed from the year 2000, I think. And at one point in the game, like you have the choice, Randorn either lives or dies, and I think like it would have been this inflection point in the game where like Randorn could have died permanently, or you could have saved him. And I don't think it would have like altered too much, but apparently that was like going to factor into later like the fate of Randorn.
It also explains why this very mighty wizard can't help you.
Yeah, but then why even have a wizard in the first place? Why make him a wizard in the first place if you're like, okay, well, let's introduce a wizard, but he can't help. The more I see of this, the more I'm like, yeah, Randorn was not needed at all in the plot. Maybe this is me being judgy after living with Star Fox Adventures for over 18 years. I don't know.
It's really weird to hear Hyle Russell say they didn't need a character here.
Okay. I'm not going full retro studios here and like, let's just have one animal buddy. But, you know, I think what they did was fine. But then Randorn is like, introduces the concept of spells in the game. And I'm like, okay, this is getting very different from Star Fox Adventures. Because Star Fox Adventures had like, you know, magic you could do with the staff, but spells as like this whole like menu option.
This seems to kind of reframe the staff abilities from Star Fox Adventures, where instead of being inherent to the weapon, they're inherent to the wielder.
Yeah.
Which again kind of contextualizes why there's a wizard here a little bit more.
Yeah, and you know, magic still played a part in Star Fox Adventures, but I think bringing in the more sci-fi oriented Star Fox characters, it made magic more of an anomaly, like more of a like Fox, this stranger in a strange land type situation. And you wouldn't really want him to be pulling out spells and like dabbling in the arcane ways of Randorn the wizard.
Yeah, so they kind of reconcile it, I think, in the best way they could, where it's not Fox doing the magic. The staff is magic and Fox is wielding it.
Yeah. And then Randorn, we get very minor cutscenes of Randorn explaining the history of Dinosaur Planet. And I have to say, like, this is my ignorance of how much of the lore of Dinosaur Planet was out. Like, I obviously didn't read up on a whole lot of it, but somewhere along the way in the last several years, I had forgotten that the Krazoa even played a part in the N64 Dinosaur Planet. So I was surprised to see the Krazoa show up in this build of the game. I always like thought of them as like a distinct replacement for Randorn and his mythology. But the Krazoa here, what was surprising to me was they feel more ancient than what was presented in Star Fox Adventures, because they mentioned that they predate the current universe itself. Like the Krazoa existed in the universe before our own universe, and then their world ended. And according to Randorn, Dinosaur Planet was then created by the Great Cimmerian Dragon, which is this whole mythology. And you actually, we talked about this before we recorded, and I was like, not putting the pieces together with what was already established by, again, the documents on Rare Thief. And then I went back and I cross-referenced them, and I was like, oh, okay. So Randorn mentions that, like, this history of the Krazoa, and then this entity called the Cimmerian Dragon created Dinosaur Planet, and the King Earthwalker began to suspect that this history was wrong, that there was some sort of missing piece. And so I went off on this notion that, you know, judging from how Star Fox Adventures goes, the big antagonist that's like hiding in plain sight but doesn't reveal himself to the end is, of course, the ghost of Andross, who reincarnates in the flesh using the power of the Krazoa. Like, his whole long con in Star Fox Adventures is, I am a disembodied ghost and I want to re-enter the physical world. How do I do it? I'm going to exploit the magic and the political divisions of this planet and basically pull a fast one on everyone and bring myself back. And so, like, Star Fox Adventures is basically the Rise of Skywalker. It's Palpatine's plot in the Rise of Skywalker, just with Andross. And so I was thinking, I was going off on all these tangents playing the ROM, where I was like, I wonder if the actual antagonist of Dinosaur Planet is a Krazoa, or it's the Krazoans who want to reclaim the universe. And so they're like, please remember at the end of Star Fox Adventures, when Andross returns, he takes on this persona as the mighty Krazoan god, and he kind of laughs as like it's all one big joke. And I was like, I wonder if a Krazoan god was the main antagonist of Dinosaur Planet, but it's not. Not according to the notes. And so thank you for pointing me to Rare Thief. Check out Rare Thief, friends of DK Vine, by the way. But it's actually the main antagonist seemed to be a character who does appear in Star Fox Adventures, Drakor. How do you, I don't know.
I kind of go with Drakor, which I gotta say is a name that would work in Saurian. It's just abstract enough.
But in Star Fox Adventures, Drakor appears as this genetic experiment that's created in the Sharp Claw Laboratories.
Yeah,
and
he's kind of presented as like a monstrous bioweapon. You don't even really know if he can talk because he doesn't say anything.
Yeah.
These dev notes present him as like an intelligent figure, and not only that, but spoilers for a game that didn't come out, kind of the man behind the man for General Scales.
Yeah, General Scales was always a patsy. General Scales was always being manipulated by a greater force. In Star Fox Adventures, it was Andross. In Dinosaur Planet, it was Drakor. And I'd forgotten all of this, because again, I don't retain knowledge of Dinosaur Planet. Maybe I will now that I've actually played it, but or played the ROM. So it turns out Drakor is a descendant of the great Chimerian dragon that created Dinosaur Planet. So
it kind of sounds like the Krazoas and the Chimerians that Drakor descended from were like sort of warring factions, and alluding to like in what the King Earthwalker's comments alluded to, like the history of both is not what it seems.
Yeah, and so like from what I understand, the Krazoans are still an ally in Dinosaur Planet. There's just always been this kind of like weird, like unspoken malevolence to the Krazoans.
I think that's exactly what the nature of the like storyline notes that are on Rare Thief, without going too much into it for people who want to read it up on it themselves, they're mostly benevolent in the context of Dinosaur Planet, but have a like dark secret to them.
Yeah, and I always attributed that malevolence in Star Fox Adventures, that unspoken malevolence, to Andross, and because Andross is sort of playing everyone, and he's using the power of the Krazoans to return to life, and we then like get it affirmed that no, the Krazoans are actually altruistic. They're the ones who are restoring Dinosaur Planet. Fighting to restore Dinosaur Planet. Andross is just this corrupting influence that's affecting everything. But I think some of that unspoken like fear you have the Krazoans Krazoas are like a leftover byproduct of this plot, where it's Drakor, and it's this whole unspoken history, this war between them and the Chimerian dragons, and just a whole lot of, like, again, very Tolkien-esque, like, layers upon layers of backstory that it's hard for me to grasp until I can actually experience it myself. So
I gotta say, in even what little glimpse we get of the Krazoas in this build, it makes them feel like a more concrete concept to me than what we get of them in Adventures, where there's still this very abstract, ancient thing that you never quite have a full grasp of as to what their morality is or how much agency they have, insofar as, like, Andross's machinations, until the end when they do restore the planet. But I was just sort of stunned by just that very minor moment of the flashback that Randorn narrates that has Krazoas walking around
in the flesh. Yeah, because you see, like, that personification of Krazoans in the spirit. That might be Andross messing with you. It's a little ambiguous, but otherwise they appear as the disembodied, like, spirit energies. So to see them, like, walking around in the flesh in their prime was like, whoa, like that is, like, almost biblical for me. Like, that is, like, going back to like the actual creation myths in the DKU. It was really cool to see. But like I said, the Krazoas are presented much more ancient here. I think in Star Fox Adventures, they're just this civilization that ruled the planet that became Dinosaur Planet and then died out. Like, so much of their history is lost in Star Fox Adventures, and you're just left to kind of infer. But I think, like, even the Saurian language was the Krazoan language, which explains also the connection between them and Crystal's planet Cernia, which seems to have some sort of connection to Dinosaur Planet, which is why Andross was messing with that first. A lot of stuff you have to read between the lines with Star Fox Adventures. If you're a total freak like me, that's fine. I'm the one who loves the ending to Lost, after all. But I can see why not having it spelled out for you, spell-stoned out for you, even, might make this the more preferable take. I don't know. Anything else we want to say about Warlock Mountain before we move on?
I guess I would just say that this game kind of gradually diverges from what you expect as it goes on from Star Fox Adventures. Because I'd say the Galleon intro is, the basic beats of it are very similar, even though the scene doesn't play out the same way. Warlock Mountain is at least a, like, kind of sideways version of what you see in the beginning with Krazoa Palace and Star Fox Adventures. What we're going to see next is kind of something completely different.
Yeah, this freaked me out. I have to admit, I wasn't expecting this, and I didn't like it much because this, okay, so for me, this is like one of those time travel movies, right? Where you return to the present day and find everything is different, and people you thought you knew have completely changed. This is Marty McFly going back to 1985A and meeting this warped version of Hill Valley. That, oh God. So, at this point in the story of Star Fox Adventures, Crystal sees Andross's ghost. We don't know it's Andross's ghost, but she's like, you! And Andross blasts her and encases her in the crystal conduit, right? That will channel all the Krazoan energy. But Crystal isn't, like, put in stasis in this version. She is still supposed to be a proactive protagonist who's going to keep coming back into the plot. So she just kind of leaves Warlock Mountain. She teleports out of it.
Well, first what happens is Scales comes back to the Park
Oh,
the Galleon.
Scales comes back. Yeah.
And takes off with Kite still in the cage. So it becomes a quest to get off Warlock Mountain and rescue Kite.
Yes. So yeah, Scales. Yeah, I wasn't expecting Scales to come back.
Which in this next scene will kind of make things very awkward.
Yeah. So I said Crystal doesn't get put into stasis. She kind of does, actually, but not through means you would suspect. So she warps from Warlock Mountain to, well, basically what we know today as the Warp Stone. Now, the Warp Stone,
or at
of
least
course,
a like offshoot kind of, or like the Warp Stone was kind of merged into a composite of these two characters, and this is the first one that she meets.
Right. Predecessor to the concept of the Warp Stone. Now, the Warp Stone is just this big, goofy, Scottish-sounding golem, who, presides in Thorntail Hollow, and he can warp you to Krazoa Palace or Ice Mountain, and he's got this maze underneath him. As a concept, I guess this makes more sense in Dinosaur Planet, where he's not the Warp Stone, he's a Swap Stone, and his name is Rubble the Swap Stone. But Cameron, I hate him. I hate his teeth, and I hate that he's not a big Scottish weirdo. I so much prefer the Warp Stone over Rubble, the Swap Stone. It was just weird. It was just unfamiliar and off-putting. It was taking something I love and taking it into the uncanny valley.
Yeah, I think when they composited the two Swap Stone characters, Rubble and Rocky, together to make one Warp Stone, I think that they also composited their personalities in a way that works better for me. Because you kind of have this contrast between Rubble and Rocky, where Rubble is the nice, jovial, smiley one, and Rocky is the one who hates everything and everyone and doesn't want to do anything. And they kind of merge those two personalities into a helpful but also like weirdly confrontational just Scottish weirdo.
Yeah.
I didn't realize I said weirdo twice there, but it's...
Oh no, weirdo is one of our favorite words. And he's still a weirdo. Rubble is still a weirdo, though, because Crystal's like, I've got to get to Discovery Falls. And then Rubble says, nah, you got plenty of time for that. Let me show you how the swap works. And then he closes his fist and traps Crystal inside. And then this is the part where I really lost my shit, because then Rubble stops. He turns to face you, the player, and then addresses you, shattering the fourth wall. Because I was playing this on my computer with an Xbox controller, which Steve from off of Rare Gamer informed me that I could do, and I was like, oh, this is great. I'll play with my Xbox controller. But I almost dropped my controller because I was like, oh my god, the Swap Stone is talking to me. It's like in a horror movie where the girl crawls through the TV to come claim your soul. Or I don't know. It was like the character was taking a break, and it was like there to like, it's like, okay, well, we've had some fun here tonight, but let me tell you about the dangers of doing drugs, kids. It was just like, why are you talking to me?
It's a very weird moment, because it's not like Conker, where since the beginning you've been conditioned like, oh, Conker will sometimes talk to me. It's that sort of story. This is a game that's had like a fairly straightforward narrative direction and point of view so far. And then there's this weird break where suddenly a character is addressing you and looking directly at you. And I gotta say, in general, this is a weird bit of like presentation for this conceit. I think they were trying to build in a narrative reason for you to be switching back and forth between characters instead of just like hitting the pause menu and flipping over to the Saber tab and continuing from Saber. But it leads to weird situations like this. And granted that this may have been ironed out because this is a work in progress of a game. But it leads into weird moments like this where Crystal is saying, this is a high-pressure situation. Kite's been kidnapped. I need to go find Kite before General Scales tortures her or whatever. And Rebel's confident that, no, don't worry about it. This is a video game. She's going to be fine.
Yeah, it's like, nah, enough of that plot. Let's see what's happening over here. And then just like, Crystal has no say in it. And yeah, it is weird. And you're right, it was probably ironed out, but it really made me think like, wow, like Star Fox Adventures really did shore up some of this plot. And I'm sure Dinosaur Planet, had it survived in this iteration, would have done the same. But it's just weird to see from this like work in progress standpoint of like, oh wow, like this completely destroys the narrative flow here.
Yeah, sometimes cutting in the service of streamlining is not a bad thing.
No, everybody needs an editor at some point in their life. But that does jump us over to Saber/Fox. And I say Saber/Fox because so much of this character is still Saber, even if the character model is supposed to be Fox McCloud. Like you said, this is probably just them. This is probably just them feeling things out and seeing how much of Fox McCloud they can integrate into it.
And I do think it's a very work in progress model of Fox. It looks great, but it's in a very different style from the rest of the game, the rest of the characters around him, and he's much less animated than Crystal is because his eyes aren't implemented to kind of dart around and blink like hers are.
I do have to say, I really like this model. It's really grown on me. The Star Fox Adventures Fox is my favorite look for Fox. Like the vest and just everything about it's like, yeah, I'm Fox McCloud, but I'm going on this on-ground adventure through, hostile terrain.
I'm very shocked. Like, there are minor bits of this design that are different from the one we ended up with, beyond the fact that it's an N64 model, but I'm shocked how much was already cemented with this design this early. Like, yeah, all the basic aspects of it are there. The sleeveless vest, the, like, metal gauntlets, the poofy pants with the yellow stripe going down them, the big giant metal boots, like it's all there. Yeah,
there seems to be more blue in it than green. And obviously green is more associated with Fox McCloud.
I think basically all the blue in this design became green, even Fox's eyes, which is a change I ultimately like because I think like there were an overwhelming number of Nintendo protagonists with blue eyes, and green is something different.
Yeah, it's cool though to see this as an N64 model, and I really, really like it. It's weird for me to see Fox McCloud on the N64 and not have it be the Star Fox 64 Fox McCloud.
Right. It's cool to see that they're already trying. It's cool to see that they're already trying for the more realistic bent on Fox McCloud this early when they're still beholden to the same geometry limitations Star Fox 64 was.
Yeah, because even the Super Smash Brothers Fox McCloud, his other appearance on the N64, is still the Star Fox 64 Fox. So this is like something completely different. And you know, obviously when it went to the GameCube, you had all of the textured the fur, and it looks gorgeous. But I have to admit, I really like the seeing one more N64 era Rare protagonist portrayed like this.
Yeah.
Like it would be like seeing a new N64 model of Dixie Kong in 2021. It'd be like, whoa, I never thought I would see it.
And it must be said, like we already talked about how Star Fox Adventures is still one of the prettiest looking games on the GameCube. This would have been one of the prettiest games on the Nintendo 64.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Just the fact that they had so much, like I was shocked at the amount of voice acting in this. Because, something like Conquer, you're conditioned, like, yeah, it's like fully voice acted, but hear so much of it in this game, and, granted, I would have used the expansion pack, it, would have, like, brought in all this horsepower, but this is, like, really, really, punching above its weight class as far as an N64 game.
I was so fixated on the visual difference between this and Star Fox Adventures that I just like took for granted how impressive the audio also is, because you have the full voice acting, and not only that, but in addition to quote unquote new music that we don't hear in Star Fox Adventures, there's a lot of sort of the same songs, but they sound very, very similar, and it does not feel wrong for either game. It's impressive for both of them. The quality is really stunning.
Yeah, it was during this next bit on Ice Mountain that I was really starting to notice the quality of the David Wise soundtrack and how good it sounds here despite being on the N64. And I think that really drove home to me, too, David Wise's almost complete absence on the Nintendo 64, and how that entire era of both Rare and the Donkey Kong universe it was mostly defined by Grant Kirkhope's work. So to hear like David Wise's compositions in this N64 environment, it was just kind of a trip. It was
this is still one of the only full 3D games, like in terms of like 3D movement, that he's composed for.
Yeah. Now on Ice Mountain, we start in media res on Ice Mountain, like the bit that we would have started off with Fox McCloud when he takes the Warp Stone there to rescue Prince Tricky after he's already visited Thorntail Hollow, but here this does play out extremely similar to Star Fox Adventures. And we already knew this from the leaked footage from years ago, but
the script is almost unchanged except for to how it is in Star Fox Adventures, except for one very glaring line.
Yeah, and this is what's different from that leaked footage too. Now, first of all, I should point out that Fox still uses the sword a la Saber, because at this point, Crystal's staff still belonged to Crystal, and Crystal was going to come back into the story once Rubble let her go. But they both have
There's
equal
a vision
status
of
in
this
the
game where Fox just has to rescue Crystal from Rubble, who she's trapped in the hand of the entire game.
Just give him a snack like the Warp Stone. But the sword he has is magical, though, so it still has all the same functionality as the staff, I'm assuming. It can shoot projectiles, so it's not like there's a big difference here. But the line of dialogue you're referring to is, I am Fox McCloud. McCloud, by the way, not McCloud. I am Fox McCloud. MCLOUD. Play it McCloud, Cameron.
It's his DJ name, Fox McCloud.
I am Fox McCloud, Royal Knight of the Lilat System. What?
So this line took me back.
Anything.
But probably from a very different reason it took you back. Like, how did you feel about this line?
I was like, that's not anything. That has nothing to do with Star Fox lore. Fox McCloud is a freelance mercenary who's hired by General Pepper to do shit that his actual government funded forces can't do.
It's wrong on several layers, right?
Knighted?
Because Corneria is not a monarchy that we know of, and even if it was, Fox is a free agent.
Yeah, so like in this version, was he like knighted by the Queen of Corneria?
So here's how I interpreted this scene, or at least how I knew about this line of dialogue before I saw it in this ROM, but in a context where I did not expect to see it in this ROM, which was quite a while back. Somebody had ripped some internal text that's in the final Star Fox Adventures, and much of it is sort of a work-in-progress Dinosaur Planet script left over. Mm-hmm. And my read of it was, in just thumbing through a digital document on a computer screen, that it came off as though they sort of did a quick pass using find and replace to sub out Saber with Fox, and I assume Planet Animus with Lilat System. So the original line, I think, would have been, I'm Saber, Royal Knight of Planet Animus. And, I mean, that's how I assumed it would go, but I just assumed that's clearly a placeholder script. No way would that have stuck around when they got to re-recording the dialogue. And lo and behold, here's Steve Malpass saying, I am Fox McCloud, Royal Knight of the Lilat System, loud and clear.
Leaving behind one dwigged. I think that Nintendo probably, even if Rare had intended to keep that, Nintendo probably would have shut it down. Like, what?
I can't imagine they had any intent to keeping this.
Yeah, but Steve Malpass recorded it, like you said. That's the bizarre part. Like,
and speaking of that, I guess we should touch on, and this was something I think we kind of gleaned from footage of Dinosaur Planet that was already out there, but it's kind of staggering how much audio is from Saber is retained for Fox, because Steve Malpass gives a very similar read for both characters. Yeah. And that was shocking to me, because I always thought around the time of Star Fox Adventures, like, Steve Malpass is, I think, my favorite voice for Fox McCloud. It's a very appropriate take on the character. It fits him really well, especially with the miserable cynic he is in Adventures. I think, like, I also really like the original Star Fox 64 actor, Mike West, but Steve Malpass gives a take that sounds a lot like him, in addition to bringing the sensibility that Adventures needed. And it was always very surprising to me to find out, oh, Saber just always sounded like that, and it was all just a coincidence. Steve wasn't really trying at that time to sound like Mike West.
Just like Tricky in Star Fox Assault somehow sounds like the middle ground between both Trickies from Adventures and Diddy Kong Racing. Like, who knows how any of this stuff winds up perfectly in sync with each other, but it does. It's always been kismet that these two properties were going to be linked. So
even the characterizations of the two are like kind of similar and different at the same time, in that, and I think it makes the readings work for both characters. Fox, as I said in Adventures, he's a bit older. He's, mid-20s, but jaded, cynical, irritable. Saber, from what I can glean in what we can tell of him from like story background and just what he's doing in this game. He's younger. He's just a bit more like a reluctant hero, but like somebody whose heart's in the right place. And like they kind of meld the two together and reconcile that for the jaded older Fox.
Yeah, it works really well. You know, I just looking at our live stream chat really quick, and Gibbon is in there and brought up the point that, I mean, I just said how it's funny how these two projects, Dinosaur Planet and the Star Fox franchise, always seem to be linked even before that link was made explicit behind the scenes at E3 2000. And he brought up that in the original Super Nintendo Star Fox game, in the instruction manual, the planet Fortuna, it's described as this. Fortuna is also known as the Dinosaur Planet and is prowled by untamed and brutal creatures. Andros has fed and gained control of these brutes and plans to turn them into living weapons. So there was a dinosaur planet in Star Fox before Rare developed the game Dinosaur Planet, which became Star Fox Adventures.
And even the seeds of turning dinosaurs into bioweapons somehow.
Yeah, and it's really funny then that nobody at Rare or Nintendo made the connection to just make Dinosaur Planet Fortuna. And in fact, that's now, I guess, decanonized because Fortuna is not Soria, obviously. It exists as a separate planet in Star Fox canon, and is now not Dinosaur Planet. But it's just weird to me, like, that's one of those weird, like, chilling moments. Like, even Dinosaur Planet, it's even capitalized as a proper noun in the instruction manual. And it's just like one of those moments like, all right, like what time travel shenanigans is this? Like what wizard, what Randorn did this? It reminds me of like on the DK Vine forum when someone years before Nuts and Bolts said that the next Banjo-Kazooie game was going to be called Nuts and Bolts. And it's just like, what? How did that happen? How did that prediction happen?
Yeah, that's absurd. And Gibbon also points out in the chat, Fortuna and Soria are both in Star Fox Assault. And I would also add to that, I think maybe one of the reasons they didn't just call Dinosaur Planet Fortuna, basically to give them as much freedom as possible going forward and backward, like basically full creative agency into what Dinosaur Planet is. They wouldn't be bound by it's in the same place that Fortuna is in the Lylat system. It's not bound by the same history. Dinosaur Planet can be this weird mystical world off in its own corner on the fringe of the Lylat system that can come and go as it pleases. But also, I think it's possible nobody at Rare had Fortuna in mind because the planet Ficina in Star Fox 64, which is a snow-covered barren world with a military base on it that may or may not get exploded in Star Fox 64, depending on how well you do. That was mislocalized as Fortuna in English-speaking territories.
Yeah.
So, if Rare was playing, if that was the version of the game in Rare's memory, they may not have been thinking of Fortuna as the dinosaur planet. They might have been thinking of it as the ice planet.
Either way, like what the hell? That it's just still one of the great mysteries to me. Like, well, again, I said kismet. Like, it just sometimes the stars align and things are always supposed to be how they're supposed to be. And Star Fox Adventures, this game was always just screaming to be a Star Fox game. So eventually they all just stopped fighting it and just went with the universe. So, you rescue, or Fox, Royal Knight of the Lylat system, rescues Tricky, Well, Tricky runs away from him, just like, I mean, it's basically a shot-for-shot recreation in Star Fox Adventures of this cutscene.
You could put these side by side, and I think it'd be the same down to the timing.
Yeah, I remember watching the footage when this was actually Saber and not Fox in the N64 build, and it was just like, yeah, this is exactly one of the most iconic moments from Star Fox Adventures, and it was always this way. And then Fox hops on the speeder bike, and you have the chase down the mountain, and then he falls off and falls into the hot spring, and then Tricky greets him at the base in Snowhorn Waste, and
yeah,
just
with the only big difference being that he doesn't have to translate. And he still says the exact same line. It's still about you're lucky you landed in a hot spring or you'd be frozen.
Yep. But yeah, so like one of the things I noticed playing through Snowhorn Waste was that a lot of the items like grub tub mushrooms weren't named yet. It was just, they had very bland descriptive names like blue mushrooms. And I'm sure all of those like would have been changed eventually. Like that wasn't like, again, this is an early ROM of a not complete game. So a lot of the things were placeholders, even disregarding the Star Fox conversion.
There's a really weird instance of that when you get to Swapstone Hollow, which is the bomb spores are called purple mushrooms, even though they're not mushrooms in the context that you get them.
Yeah, that is weird. Scarabs are still scarabs, which I realize only now that scarabs is just a descriptive name like blue mushrooms. I don't know like why they weren't given a more saurian descriptive name like skiddlywalkers or something by the time of the finished game, because everything else was, but scarabs.
We even have like a name coming up that like did a 2-layered like nonsense name.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, the Dusters.
Dusters, yeah.
Later becomes something even more ridiculous in Star Fox Adventures.
Yeah, so, well, let's explain it then. Dusters are these blue bunny creatures that serve the role that another furry creature does in Star Fox Adventures, in that it revives you if you die. It basically resuscitates you. And they're called Dusters in this build, and then they become... I'm not even sure how to pronounce it anymore.
Bophoamdads?
Bophoamdads?
They never say it out loud in Star Fox Adventures, so I don't know.
Yeah. It sounds like a Gungan term from the Phantom Menace, like something that Jar Jar would say.
It seems like a word that's already been translated into Saurian, but it doesn't translate back into anything.
And it's weird, too, because it doesn't follow what became the Dinosaur Planet, like, standard of, like, naming standards, where you have, like, a compound word conjoined into one, but with the capitalization still intact for the second word. You see that with all the dinosaur tribes: Earthwalker, Thorntail, Sharp Claw, and then things like Grub Tubs. But Baphoamdads are just Baphoamdads. It's just, but they remind me of the Globos from Banjo-Tooie, a little bit.
And we also just kind of get context on how they are involved in the process of reviving Fox, which is the Dusters in this kind of like split into a bunch of small Dusters and then like all absorb themselves into Fox, which I think raises more questions than it answers. But
yeah, I think the Duster design, they're almost too cartoony for what Star Fox Adventures began. And that was something I noticed about the aesthetic. It's still a bit more realistic than something like, I mean, obviously anthropomorphic animals, there's only so much realism going on, but it's more realistic than something like Conquer a Banjo or whatever the Timber game would have looked like. Like it ups the realism factor just a bit, but then Star Fox Adventures ups that even further from what we got here. Things are a bit more cartoony here, from the design of the Snowhorns to the Dusters, which look like they look like side characters in Donkey Kong 64. I can see why they just totally rethought those for Adventures.
The Snowhorns are very cartoony in this build, but like charmingly so, and they all have like very fun, befuddled sounding voices.
Yeah, I mean, like, and a lot of this isn't different. Like they just changed all the designs for all the dinosaur tribes, but and I don't know how much of that is rethinking it because it's now a Star Fox property, or rethinking it because it's on the GameCube and we've got to up our graphical game. Ultimately, I think I prefer all the designs from Adventures to what we get here, with maybe the possible exception of the Earthwalkers. I just remember looking at the screenshots of Tricky back in the day and really liking this appearance for Tricky. Probably I would still choose the Star Fox Adventures Tricky, but I have an affinity for the more stripped down version seen here.
Yeah, I think overall, like, Crystal is the only design evolution I'm a little bit iffy on. Everybody else, I think, like, pretty much across the board, I prefer how they look in Adventures. Tricky especially. Like, I really think the splash of purple they added to him and the spikes on his head really made him look a lot more distinct and, like, vibrant than the original.
Also, you dig up his ball here in Snowhorn Waste. It was just like, oh, his ball's just here. Okay.
Yeah, there's very minor changes to Tricky that don't, but he's largely intact to what he is in the final Adventures. They make very small changes, like if you accidentally whack him with your sword, instead of bleeding and asking you to stop or lighting you on fire once he knows how, he growls like an angry dog.
The dog aspects of Tricky were a lot more pronounced here. That's something that really surprised me. He seems more like a puppy in so many ways, and yeah, right down to the sound effects.
Oh, and even like the soundbite of when Fox whistles for him, he says "here, boy" in this version, like an actual dog.
Yeah, which is weird because that doesn't make a lot of sense in the context of this world. Like, in the final game, you play ball with him, but he's still a kid who likes to play with the ball. Like, I can see it. But it makes less sense here that Fox would consider Tricky to be of a dog-like stature when he's royalty.
There's like it's like the Goofy Pluto paradox, but like rolled up into one character where he's both.
Yes. Anyway, and then you leave Snowhorn Waste, and you're back to the Hollow like you would be in Star Fox Adventures, but it's not Thorntail Hollow, it's Swapstone Hollow.
I gotta say, I noticed one very distinct thing in this transition from Snowhorn Wastes to Swapstone Hollow. I'm wondering if you picked up on it too. Did you happen to notice, getting from one area to the other, that all you had to do was crawl through a hole, and there was a distinct lack of a puzzle with running water and a lever to adjust the current back and forth and having Tricky stay on a switch?
Yeah, it was more abrupt. It was just like, okay, we're here.
So I have a theory, and I'm pretty confident this is exactly what it is that crawling through a hole in that tunnel in the N64 version is to prepare the next loading zone.
Uh-huh.
And on the GameCube version, where the entire game, they have a lot more horsepower with the console, but everything is running on mini discs. I think it needed additional prep time to load the upcoming area, so you have these transitionary zones all throughout Star Fox Adventures, and you'll know where they are because if you pause in them, all you can do is save and load or quit the game. You can't talk to any of Fox's companions. And I think they were, because both Dinosaur Planet and Star Fox Adventures have the ambitious goal of a totally seamless overworld, those are a concession to buy time for the game to load. And this is something games even do to this day. Like, I've seen people complaining that the remake of Final Fantasy VII does this by like having an area between loading zones where Cloud will have to like position himself up against a wall and like slowly sidle along past some debris or some pipe to give the next zone time to load. But
yeah, I
thought that was an interesting consequence of the hardware move, because it's maybe the only detrimental part of it. If my theory is right, and that's indeed what it is.
Although, I don't mind so much in Star Fox, because to me, it's padding to help design the game load, sure, but it also makes Saria feel bigger. It makes it feel more like a planet you're traversing rather than just boom, new area, boom, new area. I like that there's this middle ground and that there's some division between the realms.
I was going to say it makes me wonder how dinosaurs get anywhere on this planet, but maybe they don't, because there's a clear division of which species live where.
Yeah, and there's also the distrust between the species because there isn't a whole lot of mingling between the tribes. But Swapstone Hollow, I'm loath to bring this up for fear it will turn into a 12-hour podcast, but the general term of Swapstone, it coming off of our whole extended Banjo-Tooie series that morphed into a stop and swap discussion at the end of last season, really made me wonder, hey, Swapstones, Swapstone Hollow, if stop and swap was ever going to factor into Dinosaur Planet, this is where they would do it. And I'm not saying that was the plan. Obviously, swapping here infers something completely different, something fundamental to the game's mechanics, but I couldn't not bring that up because I could definitely see Rubble holding out one of the eggs in his hand or an ice key or something, or be like, step here and yank this cartridge out and put
There'll be
Donkey
plenty
Kong
of time
64.
to rescue Kite later. Let's pop in Banjo-Kazooie.
Let's see what's happening with Juno and Vela over in Jet Force. I don't know. Obviously, Jet Force wasn't going to be part of it, but I didn't even bring up that right after we did our Stop and Swap episode, Paul Makachek was inspired then to dish even more dirt about Stop and Swap. So we're going to have to do an update at some point on that. Thanks, Paul. So anyway, before we take the calls we need to talk about another character similar to the Warpstone who's also near and dear to DK Viner's hearts. That's Shabunga. Shabunga the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper, as he's known apparently to everyone at Rare, Shabunga only comes from the official Nintendo Power Player's Guide of Star Fox Adventures. I don't know where they pulled Shabunga from, but that's where we get the name Shabunga. And I'm sorry, Cameron, but I can't quit the name Shabunga.
Yeah, I can't either. It's too fun of a name.
Yeah. So Shabunga might not be... It might be like another Tricky, is the same Tricky from Diddy Kong Racing. It might not be this intrinsic part of the lore among the actual development team, but to the fan base, yeah, you better believe his name is Shabunga.
So, yeah, I encountered Shabunga in this. He's not, his store isn't where it used to be. It's actually located underneath either Swapstone, where the game Well Maze is in the final game.
Uh-huh.
And the most striking thing about Shabunga is that so very little about him is different at all.
I think once you hit upon perfection, you know not to mess with it.
I think that's basically it. There's nothing to change, because I kind of wondered, Shabunga is a very, in a game that's like full of unprecedented mysticism for the Star Fox universe and introduces all these new concepts to that world building. Shabunga is an anomaly within an anomaly. We don't really find out what his deal is, what he is. Why is he a like legless ancient T-Rex genie? Like it always seemed like maybe there was going to be some deeper context to him in the original Dinosaur Planet that got lost. And no, if anything, I think there might be even less context in the original Dinosaur Planet for what he is.
Yeah, I've always like rationalized it that he's a sharp claw. Now, why he's legless, why he's some sort of genie man, I don't know. But I
mean, yeah, Diddy Kong Racing, the team likes their genies. Apparently,
the team does like their genies, and hey, if maybe Shabunga is an artifact from the Timber game, and Shabunga was like this. We would learn more about the genie culture. I don't even know, but that's why like I'm really hoping the next stage of all of these leaks is seeing more about the Timber time travel. I want to see design docs for that. I want to see what the plans were. Because I think that is really the biggest part of this story still left untold is before Saber, before Crystal, when it was Timber and Tricky. That is what we still have left to uncover. And obviously, like there's more of the ROM to play, but this is where it really starts glitching out for people.
Yeah, we kind of
have gotten further.
Like the furthest you get as far as like intended progression that you don't sort of have to cheat your way through, I believe, is the quest to give Tricky's mom white grub tubs. And
yeah,
we do get like a little bit of more context to how the plot differs in Dinosaur Planet, because she kind of gives a spiel about the spellstones. In this version, it seems like they kind of keep the planet's energy in check as opposed to literally keeping the planet together. Which because of I guess brings me to a fun like meta coincidence that Dinosaur Planet and Star Fox Adventures have in common, which is where people have trouble with the ROM. It seems to me like a lot of the areas in the game are present in the data. Like they're fully modeled geometry that you can walk around in and navigate with like some interactable objects in them. But the connective tissue, the like quest objects and loading zones that would unite them are what's broken and what's keeping you out of accessing them. So even though in Dinosaur Planet, where all of these areas like Dark Ice Mines and Cloud Runner Fortress apparently are on the same planet, they aren't like floating off into space. The greatest obstacle in your way is that they're still inaccessible in both versions of the game.
Right. And it makes complete sense.
It's just Dinosaur Planet is coming apart in different ways.
It makes complete sense why they would actually make it literally coming apart in when they decided we're going to add R-Wing missions, because you need a reason, a conceit for Fox to hop into a spaceship and fly around in space rather than just stay on the planet. So to have the planet breaking apart, I think, is a rather ingenious little addition to the plot. They did a really good job of adapting what they already had and making it work for a Star Fox game.
For everything that's sort of an awkward fit, like the fact that Slippy and Peppy are just sort of confined to menus, and Falco is away, and Fox can't shoot things with a gun. The greater achievement is what they did manage to make sense. And you kind of see how much weight they did pull when you compare and contrast this version of the game.
Yeah, and I think I have a greater appreciation for that now, and I hope other people do too, seeing what was originally there. We have some calls to take, two. We're going to play them, and then we're going to just wrap this up. Give our final thoughts for now on Dinosaur Planet and Star Fox Adventures. But like I said, I'm energized like a mystical staff. I am energized that people are excited about this property again, and that they're talking about it. And it's really fun to kind of duster it off and bring it back into kind of what we talk about here on DK Vine. It's been far too long. So, all right, let's hear what you have to say. You at home, two people.
What up, DK Vine? It's John Tessie, a.k.a. the J-Tess Express, here to talk about Dinosaur Planet for the N64. Man, it is so crazy that we are able to play this game. Like, it is just so insane. What a time for the Rare community. And who knows what other ROMs are out there of other games that one day we will be able to play. This is just, it opens up so many opportunities. It's amazing. But my problem with this, there's a problem with this for me. My problem is, there's an underlying little thing around all this, that this Dinosaur Planet N64 build is a better game than Star Fox Adventures, which we eventually got for the GameCube. And I'll be honest, I sit on that. I hate that. You know why? Because I think Star Fox Adventures is a fucking great game. I just played through it all last week, and it's so great. For me, personally, the Star Fox 64 is my favorite game of all time. So the sequel to Star Fox 64 being made by Rare, my favorite developer of all time, and it's in the style of Ocarina of Time, one of my favorite games. How can I not love it? The fact that at the end you fight Andros and it's an even better boss battle than the one in 64. How could I not love it more? I love the Star Fox element to Star Fox Adventures. And I say, screw that. Star Fox Adventures is a better game. Dinosaur Planet. Done.
Well, thank you for the call, John. And coming down on the side of Star Fox Adventures, which I have to admit, I like to hear because it feeds into my final thoughts.
I guess a thing about this is you can't really come out of this on the side of Dinosaur Planet is a better game than Star Fox Adventures, because we don't really have a complete game in Dinosaur Planet here. At the end of the day. And there is a vision for... There's evidence of in places a greater vision than what we end up with in Star Fox Adventures, in that there's more areas than are present in Star Fox Adventures. But because of the realities of game development, we don't know how much of that was like set to be on the chopping block if they continued with the original vision of Dinosaur Planet. How much they would have changed in that regard, or what fell by the wayside to like better develop the R-Wing levels or things like that. There's a lot that we can kind of see where it was going, but also parts where we just don't know where they were headed.
Yeah, I think there's a tendency in fandoms to romanticize what might have been versus what we actually got. And I'm really, really happy to hear John's call here, because I sort of agree with what he's saying. Maybe not as adamant as he's saying it, but because I certainly see a lot of the virtue and ideals of Dinosaur Planet and what we might have had versus what we got. But I'll save that.
I do apologize. You're not getting like a wide variety of opinions from your two co-hosts, because I do know there are people in the community who do feel that things would ultimately have been for the better if the game had remained Dinosaur Planet, even if they do like Star Fox Adventures for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't want to say you're wrong. No, nobody's wrong here, but I'm also, I guess part of my evolved philosophy from who I was 20 years ago, or even 15 years ago, or even 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, Cameron, is to not lament so much and not be like ruined and broken by cynicism. We got a really good game out of this, and I'm just thankful we got that game, you know? Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, but if only Randorn was in it. Oh, Randorn.
I guess that's one way to look at it is we got a version of Dinosaur Planet. We didn't get no game because it was canceled after languishing in development for 6 years. We got a finished product.
When you look at what happened with Donkey Kong Racing into Saberman Stampede, I'm just glad we got Star Fox Adventures. Oh my god. All right, let's take our second call, and then we'll converse a little bit more about this topic. All right.
Hey guys, Rick here. Let me tell you, I ain't got any interesting topic really. I just wanted to call and tell it like it is. All right, you know. So I grew up with Star Fox 64. I got for my birthday. I loved it. I loved that game, and I loved Fox McCloud. You know, just like I can't believe I lost this. Sorry to Jet, but I'm in a hurry. Like, man, what a fucking Chad, you know? God damn. And, you know, I got Adventures, and I thought things were a little off, even back as a kid. But he's still so cool. Those fur effects, like, come on, man! I think he's a lot better than he is in Assault. He's a little off. He's really off in Assault, I would say. He looks and sounds a little weird. But, look, that's whatever, because this Dinosaur Planet model, I love it. He's so cool. He's got a sword. What a fucking badass. The model looks great. I can't believe another 64 model of Fox existed. Just excellent. We need more Star Fox. That's all I gotta say on that matter. Hey man, y'all take it easy. Peace out.
Thank you, Rick. Also coming down on the side of the interpretation of Fox and Star Fox Adventures, also coming down on the side of this model, and also giving us yet another vocal interpretation of Fox McCloud. So
I will always come down on the side of we need more Star Fox. So.
Yeah, you know, that what's interesting, Cameron, is I feel like my enthusiasm for Star Fox and the DKU implications therein really did wane after Star Fox Zero, and just kind of the deflating experience of that whole thing. And, you know, I'm like I said, I'm not somebody who really wants to wallow in cynicism anymore. So, you know, I wouldn't even like go back and like complain about Star Fox Zero to the extent I did back then, because it's just not worth it. It wasn't a Star Fox game for me, but I'm a weirdo who likes things like Fox's relationship with Dinosaur Prince, who eventually cheats when he's racing Bumpers, who go to jail for public indecency. So, you know, like, my version of Star Fox is not the same as the majority's version of Star Fox, but this is really whetting my appetite for more Star Fox again. And that's the first time in half a decade where I'm like, oh man, I really want a new Star Fox game. But I would love if it really did follow from Star Fox Command, or at least Star Fox Assault, and really play with some of these elements again, even if it's just Crystal. Crystal.
I really want either like really what I want is a direct follow-up to Command. I don't really feel like there was a reason to I feel like I often hear like, well, Command you can't really continue from because it had multiple endings, but no, there's an ending in that game that's pretty much a status quo ending. But even if you don't continue directly off of Command, I'd at least like to see the DNA of Dinosaur Planet feed back into it. You know, bring Crystal back in, bring Soria back in. I mean, they at least reference Soria in like a Star Fox Zero tie-in like animation, but you know, in a greater capacity, show that this part of your history is still informing your current choices. And that's not to say like I'm totally going to hate every aspect of like rebooting that continuity. My thoughts on Zero are well documented, but the game Starlink follows on from Star Fox Zero using like its continuity ambiguous, but it follows on from Zero's character designs and its sort of vision of Team Star Fox as it existed around the time of the events of Star Fox 64. And I really loved the Star Fox team in that game just by virtue of it's the Star Fox team and they're having fun character interactions that aren't directly rehashing the script of a 2-decade-old game.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like you can do Star Fox and like not so many fans are worried about Star Fox Command and which ending would a sequel to that choose, and you know, you can just get around it pretty easy and not decanonize everything. Star Fox doesn't need a reboot. You just don't need to remake Star Fox 64 again and again. There's plenty of time where you could set games between Assault and Command, or just follow on from Command and just say this ending happened, or you know, something like this ending happened, or we're gonna keep it super vague which ending happened and leave it for the fans to sort out. It's fine, you know. Just I want games with Crystal in them. I want games that directly acknowledge games that came before, and I don't need the events of Star Fox / Star Fox 64 / Star Fox Zero retold yet again. But Star Fox like I was a fan of the property with Star Fox 64. Star Fox 64 was a well-made game. But I really fell in love with these characters. They felt like real, tangible characters to me, and not just like catchphrase meme factories with Star Fox Adventures. Specifically Fox. It made me, like you, really made me feel like the character Fox had layers.
If you want a meme factory, you do still have Shabunga.
Right, well, a very select, because I think Shabunga memes only play with our crowd. I think it wouldn't get much traction elsewhere, but we're an insular bunch here. But yeah, I want to see, and that's what I loved about Star Fox Assault, right? Star Fox Assault to me is still my favorite so-called traditional Star Fox game, because it dared to do more, but it also followed from the events of Star Fox Adventures. I felt like the characters were growing, and even things like, I felt like the Fox of that game was a direct consequence of the Fox of Adventures and what he went through there, and that's how we got stuff like him forming this sort of new chapter in his relationship with a character like Wolf, right? Like, their whole dynamic in that game was amazing. And I feel like we couldn't have got there, though, if we just had the Star Fox 64 Fox.
Yeah. Assault definitely shoots the closest to of any post-Star Fox 64 game to where I want to see the series go, which is reconciling what came before, all in the strongest aspects of that, all into one title.
Yeah.
You have the strong sense of continuity. You have on-foot gameplay mixed in with the R-Wing and the Landmaster, and even though it doesn't always go that elegantly, it's there. You have Crystal and Tricky, like these characters that carry over. even though it was from a very different lens, even Assault's style is very informed by Star Fox Adventures in a way that I think is honestly kind of puts Star Fox Assault in an awkward position, because I've said before Star Fox Adventures is one of the prettiest looking games on the GameCube. Star Fox Assault is not an ugly game, but parts of Adventures look better than it, and it just constantly invites the comparison to a degree that really isn't Assault's fault.
Yeah, I remember the reactions to those screenshots on DK Vine when the game was first announced, and how hard, of course, we were on it, regrettably so. And then I actually, when I slush funded it, when I sat down and played it and actually gave it a chance, Cameron, I fell in love, and I was like, oh god, it's Jungle Beat. Or, actually, did I play Assault? Was Assault before Jungle Beat? I think Assault's before Jungle. Anyway, but yeah, both it and Jungle Beat, two games that are very representative of taking these, what had been like follow-ups to rare games, right? Made by other studios, Nintendo, EAD, and Namco in Assault's case, in the mid-aughts, and, of course, we had faults with them, but they both did their own thing really well. And Command is a different story. I like elements of Command. I like a lot of what Command did. But I think when you're defending, the possibilities for Star Fox, Assault is really what you want to put on a pedestal. And yeah, I don't know. All this talk, all this restoking of my love of Star Fox Adventures as a result of the Dinosaur Planet ROM. I hate that Star Fox has kind of almost gone the way of something like F-Zero, where I don't want it to. I want it to have a chance to thrive again. And we have, high hopes for the future of Donkey Kong, and Star Fox. I just don't know, though. I don't think Star Fox is a priority, really, because it's been a series that hasn't had as much success as Donkey Kong. And it's even though it's, one of Miyamoto's babies, I think it's harder to justify investing time and resources in it when it hasn't really paid off in the same way.
Yeah, I mean, we have a difficulty. We talk all the time about a roadblock to Donkey Kong games getting made is, which looks like it might be changing in the future, hopefully, is that ever since Rare was bought out, Donkey Kong Country hasn't really been a series with a home. Donkey Kong is kind of couch surfed between developers, but to the extent that's true for Donkey Kong, it is extra true for Star Fox. I don't think the same developer has handled a Star Fox game twice in a row. Except maybe I think Q Games working on the 3D remake of Star Fox 64, but I don't think that's really the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Star Fox 2, but that didn't come out until the SNES Mini, so it doesn't count. Because technically, it didn't come out until the 2010s.
Well, that's really a depressing thing to consider. Oh, our most recent release is a sequel from the early 90s that never actually saw release. But yeah, look, I am an optimist at heart, and I will remain hopeful for Star Fox. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds for any of this stuff. So I'm just glad, to see new people get into Dinosaur Planet and Star Fox Adventures as a result. And, hopefully somewhere that GameStop manager is playing the Dinosaur Planet ROM and realizing the error of his ways. It's like, I should have reserved that game for that teenager way back when. Anyway, final thoughts, Cameron. Obviously, as we heard from the calls, people are champing at the bit now to play other fabled versions of games from this era of Rare. Things like a 12 Tales Conquer 64 ROM, for example. And I don't know how well that would hold up, because from what I hear, like, even the builds of the game at Rare are hard to get going.
I would think, just my personal guess, that if Dinosaur Planet, a game we know to have had a fairly concrete vision by December 2000, is as rough as it is in this state, I wouldn't have high hopes for a very playable version of something like 12 Tales, a game we know was retooled specifically because the director didn't feel like that vision of the game was working out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with all of these incomplete games. They're incomplete. So I know people have this fantasy of, like, getting to play 12 Tales Conquer 64 as this polished, complete product.
And I mean,
I have that same fantasy with Saberman Stampede. You know, like, Saberman Stampede for the longest time was the white whale, the shrouded ghost, if you will, of DK Vine. For me personally, like, every E3 was Saberman Stampede, because it was the project that evolved out of Donkey Kong Racing.
Yeah, it didn't used to be a running joke.
Yeah. So, you know, I get it. I get it completely. And I especially get having nostalgia for this era. Of course I do. And, you know, to have a new experience from this era, you know, there's limited possibilities. There are the ROMs of earlier versions of the games that got retooled. And so I get the enthusiasm for it. I would just temper expectations, because from what I hear, that would be a rougher experience than this, which is mostly playable up to an extent.
Yeah, that said, I would still like to see, you know, pre-release visions of games and, like, get a better idea of what they were like. But I wouldn't count on the, say, requests I sometimes see of, you know, just plop 12 Tales in Rare Replay as DLC and let people play it. Like, no, you're not going to have a functional game if you do that.
So, to speak to what John was talking about in the first call we took, is Dinosaur Planet, quote unquote, better than Star Fox Adventures? And to that, I will say this. Obviously, it's all subjective. And in my opinion, while it's cool and surreal to see the Dinosaur Planet mythology restripped of most of the Star Fox trappings and presented as its own thing, you know, Star Fox Adventures is undeniably the more polished of the two, because it is a finished, complete product that saw release. Got the little official Nintendo seal and everything. And while I'm intrigued by what I've played and experienced here, something about it, I think, rang hollow to me. Like, you know, I mentioned my experience seeing the Swap Stone, Rubble. It's like seeing a distorted version of an old friend, like when Pietro shows up in WandaVision. You know, it might be the original intention behind everything, but I've lived with Star Fox Adventures for 18 years of my life. And so the Dinosaur Planet versions, they aren't my versions of the characters. This isn't my version of the planet Saria. And I'll say that from what I've noticed, and I already brought this point up, but the grass is oftentimes greener for fandom. Fandoms have a tendency, I think, to glorify the roads not taken, because we've never been down that road, so we've never experienced the disappointments of that road. You know, I liken it to when the script leaked for the original director's version of Star Wars Episode 9, before it was J.J. Abrams' Rise of Skywalker. It was Duel of the Fates, which, you know, everything about the script from what I saw sounded absolutely terrible to me. Like, it was almost like a bad parody of Star Wars. But for those who were let down by or outright hated Rise of Skywalker, it became the more desirable version, the reality they wish they had experienced. And, we see this all the time in Donkey Kong universe and Rare fandom, especially revolving around the buyout, right? Like, what if Nintendo had bought Rare, or what if the Stampers hadn't thought about buyout at all and just continued the relationship? And, I think it becomes this rose-tinted fantasy escapism that ignores the very reasons why things happened the way they did. And, Jeff pointed this out, but Dinosaur Planet getting released on the Nintendo 64 as is, it certainly would have freed up the team to then get a running start on their next project, which they would have, been developed for the GameCube. I guess Donkey Kong Racing, right? But that would have meant then eventually that, when development shifted to the Xbox, they wouldn't really have to start from square one, because they were working on Star Fox Adventures right up until the end of right up until the buyout. It was a mad dash to get it out the door. So, a benefit of the reality of where we got Dinosaur Planet earlier would have been this team would have been able to get a project, off the ground quicker as a follow-up for the Xbox, or, maybe even we would have gotten Donkey Kong Racing out on the GameCube as the game they pushed out the door right when it was closing down. Who's to say? But, I think ultimately I've just got to be happy we got Star Fox Adventures how we did. Yeah, like you said, this could have been Saberman Stampede. This could have been a game that we watched the development of for years, and then it was ultimately just canceled. We got the game. It was just missing some of the elements. Some of it was rejiggered, and it became part of a bigger franchise. But it could have just gone the way of so many of these Rare projects during the decade of the 2000s, where they were ultimately canceled.
Yeah, I don't even think this was the implication, but I think back to an interview from a while back with Phil Tossell that was posted, I think, on Nintendo Life, and he kind of explained that in this interview, he says, "I think for me it was a blessing to be working on Star Fox Adventures because we still had a clear deadline for completion of the game and knew we had to get it done before any sale occurred. Other parts of the company struggled for focus around that time because of all the uncertainty. So from our perspective, it really just spurred us on to get Star Fox Adventures finished." And I do really think about that a lot, because Star Fox Adventures might be a heavily compromised vision of what they originally set out to do, but it's still a vision that was saw through to the end.
Yeah.
And that makes a world of difference.
Yeah, it makes a Dinosaur Planet of difference. Oh, that was a dog shit way of ending it.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.